comes with some of the plays that they want to make. And that's sort of the key when it comes to when you're behind. Normally, you want to introduce variance and you want to make that chaos happen, because the worst thing that will happen is that you're going to lose more. But they took it more controlled, more measured, and said, we're going to play macro better than you. And they honestly did towards the latter half of that game.
Yeah, it did just come down to those final bits of decision making, those final bits of security, as I was really impressed finding ways to get those Drakes without losing too much on the map, finding ways to withstand those first two Barons, but eventually just a little bit too trigger happy and were unable to secure a advantageous fight. And that's going to be, again, the series lead going over to Team Fried Chicken, as Oblivion want to answer back and make this a 3-game series, but TFC want to assert their dominance here in Premade Dominate, as we're going to go to a quick break before getting into the draft and game number 2. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around.
Back to the Risen recap. Today we're looking towards Risen Unstoppable, and the stream started off with a bang, Quicksand asleep.
It's the first game of Unstoppable Risen Premade! Come on, get up, come on,
I gotta say, he was smooth once he rolled into it. And our first series was Big Bongo Boys playing up against Clarity Black. For the first 20 minutes of the game, it was a bit of fighting in the top lane, but not much happened besides that.
Oh, but the engage coming out from Sejuani, but it's trading back, and Maokai actually regenerated a lot more health than I would expected there.
For Boxer Squirrel, just really those kind of impacts making a huge difference in the gold.
Yeah, and I don't know whether I want to call them Triple B, BBB, or Big Bongo Boys, because they're not all same solos.
Then there was a mega turnaround fight for the Big Bongo Boys after they made a big dragon attempt, but then they got challenged again for the dragon attempt, which Big Bongo Boys won the fight towards.
On this side, and there's a 3 on the other side, but I can't clutch to it, and I can't clutch to it. But Boxer Squirrel in the midst of it all, unable to get too much out, but finds the Q before his last dies, and Chicken Fried Rice to escape with good depth does not unfortunately have the W enough up to heal him, and they call comes back in the circuit, but finds one. Can she find 2? No, she gets shut down, and the exchange of lives is so insane. Can Maokai find the damage to tree? And unfortunately,
So much freedom to take. Baron.
And welcome back, as we just saw a pretty tight game between Oblivion and Team Fried Chicken, as we were expecting this to be a tight one, but it did just come down to a couple of those late game decision-making moments that went the way of TFC, not to mention they just had a fantastic game overall.
Yeah, it really came down to a lot of the split-second decisions of, oh, there's a guy that's walking into us, let's go and kill him, because it's kind of just face-checking, but at the same time, they didn't have their damage, and it was just a sort of spur of the moment, like, we have to do this, or we're going to lose the game, and of course, didn't plan out, and they end up losing the game anyway. So I do want to see Oblivion actually bounce back from this, because they showed that they are really good at playing a lot of these late-game scenarios, where there's the objective, and then there's a fight, and they're very good at deciding, okay, we don't need to play for the fight as long as we can force them away. And if we can force them away, we can take the objective and just run, because we're not going to win a fight with them. So I really love the recognition coming out of this team, and I do want to see them be able to bounce back. That being said, though, TFC was really strong in the early game. Even though they were put at a disadvantage from that early invade, they were still able to get relatively ahead on the Graves in that farm department and still make an impact in a lot of the lanes.
Yeah, the continued targeting of making sure the Sivir was behind early and also punishing the Kindred for any moments of overextension just meant that Oblivion couldn't play the game they wanted until that Sivir reached that 3-4 item spike. And by that point, they were finding these opportunities. The moment that really stood out to me was that Soul Point Dragon fight that wasn't even a fight. It was just Oblivion saying, we've got the damage to shred this sucker down while the Shyvana isn't anywhere nearby. We can take so much space because there's no tanks on the side of TFC, and we're able to start applying that real pressure and finding a win condition. But in the end, it was, again, just that Baron pressure, the consistent long-term objectives that TFC had gone for, making sure those inhib towers were down, making sure they had constant pressure that let them just walk the game in after that lost fight.
Very much so, but hopping in a draft here, moving on from game 1, let's go into game 2. Bard will remain banned, of course. Don't want to give Bardo support. The Bard, it makes sense. And Maokai will still be meeting the ban table, of course. The champion has become extremely strong, as that will be locked in very shortly by Oblivion.
Yep, Maokai busted 100%.
Yeah.
As we are seeing the same bans out of TFC, and it makes sense. There wasn't anything especially scary, I'd say, outside of that Sivir that you may want to consider adjusting those bans. Otherwise, would just like to see that Bard taken off the table, that GP get the top lane less comfortable, and if you remove that Lucian once again, you don't allow for that Lucian Nami we've seen have so much presence, not just at Worlds through some European teams, but just in the average metagame where it just shows up that if you can get ahead, this lane can snowball like crazy.
Yeah, interesting enough, they will swap one of their bans over to the Graves. They said, we don't want to deal with that. That's too much of a pain to deal with in the early game. We want to play our game. We want to go to the late, and we don't want to have to deal with a snowball that goes out of control. But the Lucian will actually be taken off the ban table for the side of TFC here, swapping it up. But Hecarim, of course, will be on the side of Oblivion, of course. Champion has sort of fallen off in World's presence as we've moved into group stages because we've realized that, hey, Maokai is just Hecarim, but tankier, and still does decent damage, so why not pick Maokai? And it's kind of what a lot of teams are thinking right now, because you're either going to be taking Graves and you're going to be snowballing, or you're taking Maokai and you're going to scale, and that's sort of the duality at Worlds right now, so don't see Hecarim too much. Of course, it's still a very good champion. Not surprised to see it on the ban table here today, but it is something to think about.
Yeah, still very valuable, still is one of Jackie Chan's comfort picks, but does not have that same power and expectation that we saw initially in play-ins and in the initial experimentation on 12-18, on 12-19, as a lot of the builds that were experimented with looking for more damage, that Eclipse just not super consistent, as this Heimerdinger, just go for that first pick. I am going to say this does leave the Caitlyn open for Oblivion if they lock it in. Instead, going to take that Seraphine, the swapped ban. Graves was replaced for the Seraphine, so TFC want to pick that one up, keep that flex potential, and look forward towards that very heavy team fighting she offers.
Yeah, I mean, the first pick Heimerdinger is a little bit iffy. I do like it as a counter pick, but the first pick is can get a little rocky there, but of course the Seraphine being taken up is a pretty strong champion, nothing really to write home about in the current meta, but of course the fact that you can play it mid, you can play it bot lane, you can play it support does add to a lot of the viability of the champion. Having that three-way flex and being pretty decent, pretty solid in all three roles makes it pretty difficult to try and deal with in draft, but we'll take the Caitlyn over for the side of Oblivion Esports. You mentioned that it does leave open that option for them, and they will gladly
pick it up. Now I'm just wondering what they want to pair it alongside. I wouldn't hate if you go for a jungle here. If Oblivion wants to do something a little more supportive, the Sejuani is up. But otherwise, you can just lock in that bot lane Caitlyn Lux and wait for TFC to give you some options to counter pick into.
Yeah, they're saying we don't want to get the Lux picked away by any random chance. It looks like that TFC do have a mindset of we're not afraid to shy away from a lot of these awkward or maybe non-standard picks like the Heimerdinger, like the Shyvana top lane, just because it works well in this context. So they don't want to risk taking that Lux away. And of course, the Sivir kind of answering, we might get the bot lane sort of mirrored in the game if they choose to go for the Sivir Karma lock-in here. And it would be interesting to see which of these teams can pilot the bot lanes better.
Yeah, I would like to see the Karma left up and the Jarvan very, very strong. We've seen him show up a couple times at Worlds and does, again, fit into the aggression that Jackie Chan likes to play. If he's not on that Graves, does lean towards the Hecarim, towards the J4, maybe even a Xin Zhao if that pool is really pinched, but this constant pressure still leaves the Jarvan open, and it works fantastically with Seraphine and Sivir as they move on, but instead, we've got a Nocturne locked in as TFC are saying, we want to run at you.
Yeah, and Nocturne is one of those interesting champions because he actually did get a few buffs, a few patches back, and proved to be a little bit of a problem and got subsequently nerfed. But it looks like the draft ended up bugging out for a little bit, but not sure what's going on there.
Okay, it did bug out. They do want the J4, so that is a J4, not a Nocturne lock-in, as this will likely just result in a new draft lull picked up. So we will get that updated for you all as soon as it is available. All of the picks locked in so far will stay the same, so it will be the same bands, and Seraphine Sivir J4 for Team Fried Chicken, and Oblivion with the Caitlyn Lux locked in.
Yeah, very much. Unfortunate that the draft sort of had a bug on us there, but we'll be jumping back into it momentarily. Teams sort of get back to where we were in the initial position, but just kind of looking at how that's going to play out, but it looks like it actually might have unbugged there a little bit.
Might have unbugged, but I think both teams just wanting likely to create a new link is otherwise, even if we do stick to this draft, it is a Jarvan the fourth, not a Nocturne picked up as Oblivion, not locking anything in at the moment. So again, speaking towards that bugged moment, and they are going to be putting together a new link, so are just waiting on that. Just a rough gateway. I think the site experiencing a couple issues, so does seem from some chat messages that we're getting back and forth, Oblivion did want to round out their first half of draft with the Taliyah.
Yeah, so we will have some insight into what we're picking. Of course, we can't really see it right now, but of course, that will be taken up. It looks like we have some Phantom stuff going on in here and there, but I'm pretty sure we'll just be getting a new entirely. As looking at it so far, it'll be interesting to see where the Seraphine is going to go. Because right now, you only really have eliminated one possibility. With the Sivir locked in, it's either mid or support. You can't really flex that too much around. Of course, Sivir mid was kind of a thing when she... But it's mostly dead, and of course, after the nerfs, she is only really fringe viable in a lot of cases in the bot lane, so don't expect that to be going anywhere soon. So I don't necessarily know what I really want the Seraphine to go, because with the Taliyah locked in, presumably.
Yeah, I was going to say, we know it's confirmed up for the J4. We're still waiting on that Taliyah confirmation, as both teams were still discussing whether or not to get a new gateway and to find a new draft page, as we do have our updated page, and the teams are just sprinting through what's already been locked in.
Yeah, appreciate that from them. Just getting through it. We already know what they've been locking. So Caitlyn locks here, and we get to move on. But going back to it, I don't know if I really want the Seraphine to answer the side of the Taliyah necessarily, if it is a Taliyah, of course. But, you know, Seraphine kind of does the same thing as Karma in the Caitlyn Lux lane. It does provide decent amount of poke, and also shield and heal, and can provide some little bit of sustain. So moving that towards the bot side of the map could end up being what they want to go for in the first place. Maybe pick something with a little bit more damage for the mid laner of TFC.
Yeah, might do that. Is we see an Ivern hover. Not expecting this to get locked in. Certainly could be, but we'll wait for confirmation. And it is an Ivern, not a Talia. So Oblivion throwing in some spice. I was gonna say this is in Headhunt's champion pool. Has been spamming quite a bit of Ivern. I was personally hoping for something like a Lilia or a Diana, just for how strong they've been as of late. But that Ivern, very, very fun pick as we see more banding towards Team Fried Chicken's mid lane, getting rid of that Heimerdinger, getting rid of the Vigar.
Yeah, very much so. Don't want to have to deal with that, but Ivern does pose a lot of questions here because right now, Oblivion eSports has a lot of backline and a lot of support for this Caitlyn, but you need some type of frontline to actually use the shields on because you cannot have the Caitlyn or the Lux or the Ivern trying to frontline. So do want to see that they go towards maybe not the Darius, but something a little bit sturdier in the top lane. Maybe the Ornn they go towards, maybe a Sejuani is something that has been really popular nonetheless. So we'll have to see what they lock in here. Most likely a blind pick mid or top lane, depending on where the Seraphine goes. So we'll have to find out. But looks like the Lissandra lock in going to be the case. I'm not too big on the Lissandra pick here. I think the champion is certainly strong, but not much that you can really look to sort of counter. And it's basically saying, we don't want you to lock in an aggressive. We want to just sit there. We want to scale, and we want this powerful team fighting tool in the Lissandra ulti, the Frozen Tomb, as well as the Ring of to be dropped down. But the Victor hover does look like Seraphine will support.
Yeah, I think with this Lissandra getting picked up, it's not the best matchup for the Seraphine. The Victor, much more traditional. This is a very old school mid lane matchup, as both of these champs just want to farm up. And what I'm starting to see from Oblivion is a lot of pick potential. You have tons of burst present and a lot of CC options. As TFC, they're going for a much more traditional front-to-back team fight composition with that Ornn getting locked in. Tons of scaling, tons of late game, and Ornn Seraphine, in my opinion, one of the strongest team fighting combos in the game.
Oh, absolutely. Both of the ultimates super impactful, and TFC have drafted themselves a really, really nice front-to-back comp, but the Singed insta-lock. Okay. I don't know what to make of that. I'll be honest.
Oblivion, they've got pick. They've got some wacky wave control. To me, this is a lot of... They don't want a bursty front-to-back team fight. They want to extend some of these moments. Not necessarily poking, but make positions really awkward for TFC to try and play into. Using those Caitlyn traps maybe to pick up some space. Forcing you to face check into the Ivern. Forcing you to walk into range of this Frozen Tomb. Or if this Singed just gets one good flip, that's a pick. It's going to happen.
Yeah, they have drafted very much a pick composition. The Caitlyn Lux, the Lissandra, the Singed, even the Ivern route, all pointing towards just wanting to find one random pick onto one person of TFC and say, okay, yeah, you're good at 5v5, but what about 4v5? Or maybe even what about 3v5? But let me sell you on something else with this Singed here, because Singed I have looked a lot at as an Ornn answer, because when he drops the ulti, you just drop the goo, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter, because you're grounded. So it actually is a pretty interesting Ornn counter. However,
so 5-head.
I'm not sure how practiced this is, because Singed is very much a specialty pick. If you're a Singed player, it is definitely in your wheelhouse. If you're not a Singed player, it doesn't necessarily look the greatest. So I do want to see it. I think it's very interesting. There are also other uses, of course. TFC is a very immobile team if you ignore the fact that Jarvan has flag and drag. It's pretty much all movement speed. And if you just drop the adhesive, and all of a sudden the Sivir move speed means absolutely nothing, and you're going to get run down. So it is definitely a really good pick here. However, I think it's very hard to pilot in a manner that would make Oblivion have an advantage. So I do want to pay a lot of attention to how the Singed navigates team fights and how they're able to sort of pick off a few things, because the Victor gets adhesive, it's pretty much dead. You flip into Lux Binding, and that's going to be a one-shot. So there's a lot of interactions that can happen with the Singed, not only the ground, but also the flip.
Yeah, and you said you wanted some frontline. You wanted someone to put these shields onto. Singed running around and wreaking havoc with some Ivern shields on top. That sounds pretty scary to me. That sounds like something that solo queue nightmares are made of. As this is also just a very calculated pick. I was going to say that I would have loved to see a blind pick Ornn, as it's just one of the safest picks in the game for Oblivion. But instead, they leave the Ornn open, they offer it up, and then this Singed has to be a practice pick, or at the very least, what they had in mind should an Ornn get picked up.
Yeah, I don't think I actually saw any Singed when I was doing a lot of my research on these teams, so a little bit of a surprise for me, but of course they could be practicing that in scrims and custom games, and of course we don't necessarily have access to that, so, you know, it can be hard to read that. But back to your point about just saying blind pick Ornn on R4, I think was probably just statistically the better choice. In actuality, though, maybe they don't really care. Maybe they have that much faith in this sort of rotation where they say, okay, yeah, you can take the Ornn, but we're going to take the Singed because we're just that confident in how we play around that champion. So it's a little bit of a toss-up. I think that if you're to take an average of all teams that you could find in pro or even just at this level, I think Ornn on the 4th pick here would have actually just been the best answer on average. But of course, when we're specializing, we're looking at specific teams, it's not always the case. So I do think that Ornn on R4 absolutely is completely fine, and I probably would have chosen that myself.
Calculated.
Exactly. It's all calculated. So I'm really excited to see this Singed. I don't get to cast much Singed. Last time I think I casted it was with USF. I believe their mid laner played a lot of Singed back then. So.
Yeah, I think we were on that cast together where the University of South Florida mid laner Chen, he picked up Singed, and I think that was the same game that they had a Taric jungle, and it was one of the craziest games I have ever watched. And it was so much fun. Singed Taric combination. Singed made Taric jungle 100% win rate, confirmed. Not bait. Use it in your ranked games.
Yeah. We're not liable for any LP losses. We're just gonna.
We're not liable for
addendum.
any LP losses, anything like that. But still, the Singed was obviously something that Oblivion has, the very least, mentally prepped. Not sure how much practice they have on it together as a team, but Headhunt on this Ivern, much more of a comfort pick, not trying to play necessarily a counter matchup in that Kindred we saw from last game. Mentos does just have a no fun button available to him. Can just press R, drop that Frozen Tomb, deny anyone who gets rooted up or locked up for any second. And if Younglin and Bardo are able to keep this pressure in the bot side, I can see this initial one-item spikes period and playing around that bot side to be a great strength for Oblivion.
Yeah, very much so. And it will be a game of can Oblivion pick up on a lot of the picks there. They have Lux Binding, they have Ivern Root, they have Lysandra as a champion, they have Singed Adhesive plus Flip. They have so many tools to actually find just random picks as people are trying to rotate to and from objectives, to and from lanes. And if Oblivion can actually abuse those timers, read the map rotations, and get picks that way, it's going to be quite a game from Oblivion, to say it the least.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be a matchup of styles. We have pure pick and disruption for Oblivion, and we have Team Fried Chicken going with the tried and true teamfight composition, as both of these squads want to get onto the Rift and show why they're the best team in their group. TFC already won game 1, looking to close out the series, whereas this calculated spice out of Oblivion could be the secret to knocking down their opponents. We'll find out right after a quick break, as these two teams are about to take each other on the Rift.
Back to the Risen recap. Today we're looking towards Risen Unstoppable, and the stream started off with a bang, Quicksand asleep.
It's the first game of Unstoppable Risen Premade. Come on, get up, come on.
I gotta say, he was smooth once he rolled into it. And our first series was Big Bongo Boys playing up against Clarity Black. For the first 20 minutes of the game, it was a bit of fighting in the top lane, but not much happened besides that.
Oh, but the engage coming out from Sejuani, but it's trading back, and Maokai actually regenerated a lot more health than I would expected there.
For Boxer Squirrel, just really those kind of impacts making a huge difference in the gold.
Yeah, and I don't know whether I want to call them Triple B, BBB, or Big Bongo Boys, because they're not all same solos.
Then there was a mega turnaround fight for the Big Bongo Boys after they made a big dragon attempt, but then they got challenged again for the dragon attempt, which Big Bongo Boys won the fight towards.
On this side, and there's a 3v2 on the other side, but I can't punch to it, and I can't cut to it. But Boxer Pro in the midst of it all, unable to get too much out, but finds the Q before he's last. Dies, and Chicken Fried Rice 200 team with good depth does not unfortunately have the W enough up to heal him. And they call comes back in the circuit, Flip finds one. Can she find two? No, she gets shut down, and the exchange applies is so insane. Can Maokai find the damage to Treble back? And he does, but unfortunately, it is the ace on the side of CLB that allows them to get this dragon.
Much later in the game, Big Bongo Boys chased Akali down in the bot lane, meaning that Clarity Black had so much freedom to take that first Baron, and from that Baron, they spiraled away from a teamfight and took the victory.
the higher ranked Clarity Black, and honestly, still
find the
performing
Ollie.
extremely well.
And she Sebastian sent the freest been incredibly hard. Siege anything. Dragon does.
Summoner's Rift.
And we are back with another 5-man stack out of Oblivion. They like to play this style. They've got everyone involved, and oh no, Jinsel's a little too far forward. He doesn't see anyone yet. Does spot out one. The binding does get absorbed. That means no Boomerang Blade start things off. So that 5-man roam, once again, starting to work out for the side of Oblivion.
Yeah, and it looks like they thought the Sivir cleanse, but they just started Spell Shield, so will hurt the Sivir's lane phase quite substantially, but overall, we'll take that for an exchange of their life. But looking at a lot of the runes and spells, we didn't get to do it last time, it's my favorite thing. But it is Predator Singed. Woo! And we do have quite a history with this one, of course. We mentioned University of South Florida, but this is kind of the pick that they usually went with, Singed with Predator. It's like, this time it's top lane, not mid, but still fun nonetheless.
Unoptimal. No. But yeah, it is going to be that Predator Singe is just going to try and run around everyone. As pretty standard start for both sides. Smite off of the red buff for Headhunt and is just going to roam down, prepping all of the camps on the Ivern. As Jackie Chan, starting on the bot side, looking for a 3 to 4 camp clear, and ideally into some early pressure. But Ivern's not a champion I'm very used to seeing, so Graham, I was going to say, is there any insight that you can sort of shed on how this Ivern really wants to play the early game?
Certainly, I mean, Ivern has a pretty interesting clear. I mean, you see here that he actually started red, smited it down, and went directly down to his bot side, and I guess that's because he wanted to actually read that Jackie Chan would try to invade, knowing that Ivern typically does start on his red buff and sort of paths down, clears it, backs, and then goes and clears everything, and it's pretty efficient clear. But with Jackie Chan down here, it does sort of take a little bit more out of the Ivern to try and clear. Of course, the smite being used onto the red buff does mean that they can't secure the blue buff for sure, but will be forced out of the jungle since the Caitlyn Lux does move up. So is taking an interesting one, or an interesting clear nonetheless, but will not be too far-fetched for it. But Singe getting low.
Yeah, Singe going very, very low. You cannot disrespect the power of the Ornn. Is already very low on mana, set forced to reset. As beyond that on the map, everything going pretty much as planned. The Lux Caitlyn bot side pushing in the Sivir Seraphine, and now with that level 2 coming up, Jinsel finally has some aggressive abilities with that Boomerang Blade unlocked. Another fantastic spell shield.
Trading on the bot side will be going in the favor of the Caitlyn Lux early on, but of course, with the spell shield, it does mean that a lot of trades do end up being okay, as Klopp taken in does get a little bit of trade back, but overall still winning for the bot kill and the victor. Saw him on the Heimerdinger last game, but a little bit of a change of pace for him, as we'll be playing a standard control mage in this matchup right here, but Looks like it might be some action as Jackie Chan does want to go for something. We'll maybe answer the top lane here.
Doesn't want to try and answer the top side. There was that
Ooh.
grounding. Doesn't actually get the root, as now Jackie Chan is
No
inbound.
damage.
And there's just no damage again, as you mentioned, and both sides just gonna walk it out. No major commitment from either side, just some time invested by both junglers, and the top lane is just gonna reset once again.
It should be said that the comp for Oblivion doesn't necessarily have that much damage in the game, other than the Caitlyn and maybe the Lissandra, but not really much to go on. So a lot of the early ganks here, unless it's in the bot side of the map, won't necessarily net anything super substantial for them. And of course, we saw that sort of exemplified by that top gank, as straight onto bot lane means that Bardo will be chunked out a little bit, but the Singed is just running down bot lane with the
Singed
Predator boots. But the
does
thing is that
have-
the middle bush is warded, so... Oh. Okay.
Went for the hover and said I could TP to lane anyway, so instead just chooses it now and realizes there isn't an opportunity for finding a gank down bot side. I like the idea, I like how ambitious it was, but still very tough to try and pull off. So good to see that Oblivion, they recognize that they have to be a little more unorthodox with their composition.
It is possible that they were actually reading a Jarvan gank, as did show that Jarvan was top side and naturally would need to clear towards his bot side in order to get something done. And so Singed backing and trying to answer that. Of course, no gank going down means that he has to go back top lane and use the teleport there. So that's possible. It also could be that he was just looking for something proactive. Can't really know the minds of the players, but those are both pretty valid reasons to be down there in the first place.
Exactly, as Stead has really been struggling in this 1v1 though, as Argeru on the Ornn, there is just so much passive damage, and in trying to clear out these waves, Stead has been using so much mana on the poison, and not able to get, I think, as much as he wants out of it. As Stet, also with this Predator, means no grasp, no additional sustain, as Youngling going very low. Jincell just waiting, but low mana totals for the bot lane as Youngling forced to flash. Bardo doesn't get knocked up. Youngling one auto away, and the Ghost will be enough to survive.
Very close there, and a little bit of disrespect from the bot lane of Oblivion. Didn't really read that the Jarvan would still be down there after all that time, but of course, it's kind of hard to read those things when naturally the correct, or the supposed correct play would just be to reset. There's nothing to get down at that moment in time, and just head to your top camps, look for something there. But we'll still get pretty much every single summoner spell out of the bot, except for the Lux Ignite, and that's going to be huge moving forward in this lane, because even though there is about an 11 CS difference in the favor of Youngling, it means that this Caitlyn Lux cannot push up that far, because Jarvan, if he does anything, it is gank.
Exactly. Jarvan is one of those champs that just want to gank constantly. Is going Bomby Cinder, so this could just be in that gank sort of mentality towards a Chemtech, as that is an option, going for the extra move speed. Saw it at Worlds, if you do just want to be that engaged, but otherwise there is of course the other standard options in the Frostfire, give you a little bit more of that fighting power.
It should be said that it's a little bit tricky to see what they're going to be going, because Jarvan does have quite a lot of viable builds. Champion is quite literally just Jarvan. It will be useful no matter what, and it will do Jarvan things. So it is difficult to read it, but that Bomby Cinder does to a Chem Tank. But we'll have to see if it goes for maybe a Sunfire, or maybe even a Fire if he wants a little bit more utility or more damage, depending on what he wants. But looking at itemization for Singed, because Singed is also one of those champions where it feels like you can build whatever you want and you'll still be Singed. And it's kind of hard to read, but the Bomby Cinder does mean that it probably will be Chem Tank, probably will go for a more defensive option. That means that the Rylai's, the brace option you normally see on a champion like Singed, will be delayed a little bit and won't have that much damage in a lot of the poison later on.
Yeah, that poison coming online just that much later. But I do like this move by Oblivion. They are recognizing their bot lane pressure, but they're not recognizing Jackie Chan in the vicinity. Is Headhunt not level 6, but First Blood still goes to the Lux. Bardo's weren't able to find that, but the double root into the Gravity Well means a ton of CC back to back. And Jincell's level 6. They are on the hunt, and bot kill finds one. It's so far answered, but Youngling nearly taking a trip to Painesville, as the Earl King gonna drop some more damage. Stet is here on the run with the Predator. Not seeing the bot kill, just tunnel visioning down as Younglin is going to fall to the victor in the brush. Mentos here wants to continue the fight. The double root and the tomb will mean that Jincell is sent back to the fountain. And finally, the kill onto the bot kill will mean that Oblivion come out on top of this fight, but the Dragon still left up.
Looked a little bit rough there for Oblivion, but they do manage to come out on top. It's still at a gold deficit, though, about 1k, or a little bit less this stage in the game. That's mostly going to come from the fact that this Singe is kind of ignoring the lane phase overall. Does have that 40 CS and has been bit more proactive on the map than the Ornn, but I think when you have a front-to-back team fighting composition like TFC has, you don't care about a lot of this early game, especially when you're still in the lead. They will actually rotate their Caitlyn Lux up to the top lane. They're saying, we want to be able to bully this Ornn out. We want to get plates. The Sivir and the Seraphine are too defensive. We can't get to the tower in time, so we want to get some gold through that method. And I do like that swap a lot. It's very good recognition. And they'll actually keep that lane status and maintain it.
Yeah, they're maintaining it. I was thinking that maybe it was just to catch a couple waves and make sure that they're not losing and falling behind, but instead it is just going to be Younglin and Bardo support just continuing to look towards this, towards these plates. As I was a little scared for Argru, is taking quite a bit of harass, but focusing on the wave, recognizing that's what's important, is going to have the TP coming back up, so shouldn't be too much time where this Lux can just free fire. And on the side, both junglers trading neutrals.
Right, one of the sort of hallmarks of League of Legends is that you do something on one side, you move your strong pieces to one side of the map, that means that you're giving up something else. And in this case, we're moving up our bot lane, our Caitlyn Lux, to the top side so they can get plates. The answer, of course, is going to be the Cloud Dragon for TFC there. So good recognition, good exchange of a lot of the strong points here, and this Caitlyn will still continue to try and farm out a lot of the tower plates here. And it's honestly up to Stet to make sure that the Sivir doesn't also get tower plates in return and make it sort of a even trade in that lane swap.
That really cares about that, though. Currently in the opposing red side jungle, looking for a gank onto the mid lane, but instead Argru under pressure, and here he is, Stet, that wandering menace, as this is going to get the flip off of the Frozen Tomb. The poison will get the kill, and Stet finds his first of the game, as actually second, as Jackie Chan will go down to Younglin. Argru still wants more, but the Call of the Forge God already used, and that will be it as far as action, as plates starting to get picked up across the map. Herald is dropped here. Argru has threat of a dive. Stet is here. Stet is everywhere.
Ace in the hole is available.
This dive, flash forward. The breath is nowhere near enough, as that Herald will mean first tower going over to the side of Oblivion eSports. Gold shared as far as the local, but still healthy chunk of change going on to your carries. But on the bot side, this Sivir still picking up plates.
Very, very good rotation there from Stet, saying, I don't care, honestly, about a lot of the things that are happening bot lane. I'm going to run mid, I'm going to kill Victor. But what's more is that I'm not going to just walk back bot lane. No, I'm going to go up top lane and get a kill onto the Ornn and secure this first tower gold for the Caitlyn there. So it looks a little bit goofy, but when you consider the fact that the main goal of Oblivion is to just play for this Caitlyn. We need to get this ADC ahead so that we can have an actual win con to have. That's why we have drafted the Ivern, the Lux that has the supportive features, the Lissandra that has more CC. It's to bolster this Caitlyn's team fighting capabilities. And with such a massive lead here, of course, it doesn't look like it. The Sivir also has the Kraken, but looking at the gold totals overall, it's actually an 800 gold lead for the Caitlyn.
Yeah, this Caitlyn pretty far ahead of that Sivir, and also Stet not at all far behind of Argru, only about 300 gold. So that's just about 20 CS. These kills have certainly been paying in dividends, and it's been keeping the Singed in the game, and now Oblivion with a gold lead of their own, and the gold is where they need it to be. It's not on their jungler, it's not on their support, it's on their carries.
For sure, and we have once again swapped lanes. The Sivir is now trying to answer a lot of the wave push top lane, and we have moved the Caitlyn Lux down to the bot side, and we have matched the Ornn once again, so we're looking to get even more plates onto this Caitlyn. Of course, only 1 minute remaining for that time limit there, but don't imagine that they'll be able to get much more, maybe just one more, but Seraphine moving down means it's a little bit impossible. They don't really have vision of where the Jarvan is, so they should be a little bit hesitant to step up, and rightfully so, they're going to be backing away.
Yeah, we'll be backing away. No more plates for this bot side. Is going to be another reset for Younglin, as is likely going to move towards that mid lane and start allowing this Caitlyn to be involved across the map. Actually, maybe does want to try and find a plate. Only 20 seconds left to do so, but Stat continuing to roam. Now there's a little bit more damage for the Ivern and the Singe. They've gotten some levels. They've got Daisy, but Headhunt's still getting chunked out by the Chaos Storm, and it's just nowhere near enough. Stet's just going to run you down. And I wanted Daisy to get the last hit there, but instead it's just going to be a slow burn. That shield won't mean much, as Stet is on a killing spree. This Singe, certainly showing up.
Very much so. 3-0, have a 300 gold bounty despite having 65 CS at 14 minutes. Really expressing the fact that we're taking Predator. We're not going to lane. We're just going to run to different sides of the map, get things there, and say, sure, you have an Ornn that will scale, but we're going to snowball this game. And that's what they're looking to do right now. Of course, the Chem Tank now being picked up by the Singed. The Moonstone being picked up by the Ivern, and Andra having the Leandries. A lot of the one-item spikes are coming together for side of Oblivion here. And looking at their opponents, of course, not too far behind, but the Jarvan is just going to be backing now. Maybe getting their Mythic, and will be getting there. But looking at overall the quality of the state of the game, it doesn't necessarily look like in terms of items they're ahead, but the state of the game is heavily favoring the side of Oblivion.
Yeah, they're very, very far ahead. They're hitting the item spikes that they need. The Singed is even speedier. They're going to be picking up this second Drake in about 10 seconds as Stet is just answering Ardru. Going to hold these lanes in check. Are going to have to wait for Mentos and Youngland to make it down for this Drake play. But overall, what would you say to the side of Team Fried Chicken, though, for trying to find their way back into the game? Because they are scaling. They are okay with letting this game just sort of sit and being, you know, maybe 1.5 to 2k gold down.
Scaling is definitely going to be the option here. There's no real reason to try and make plays unless it's some sort of pick like this. In which case, fine, but flash away.
Could be fine. Mento's going to get some of that extra healing. Tons of damage onto Earl King. Not going to be able to secure the kill. Will go over to bot kill. Traded for the Drake, but still tower and a kill right onto your Victor. That's where you want to be investing more if you are Team Fried Chicken.
Exactly, and it's a little bit interesting to me because, of course, getting that kill into the Victor is good, but you're playing to scale. You're playing to actually go late with this team comp. And by ignoring the dragon and you give away one dragon, you're delaying one of your major win cons by 5 minutes. And the question is that one kill worth that 5 minutes of time where that's a potential win con that can accelerate you winning the game? And it can, because getting that gold onto the Victor is indeed important, but it can look a little bit rough if Oblivion eSports will start to stack these dragons and start to win the fights and they force things. So a little bit peculiar. I don't know if it'll be worth it, but we'll have to see as they play further into the game. But scaling is going to be the key, as you mentioned before. They need to be able to sort of slow this pace down. They don't want to go for a lot of these early fights, and they want to make sure that they can actually get to the point where their Ornn is giving out ornaments, their Victor is going to be on 2-3 items, and their Sivir is going to be on 3 items as well.
Yeah, but I am going to say, sort of in contrast, in a sense, is that these Drakes still aren't necessarily a win condition yet for Oblivion either, where the side of Team Fried Chicken doesn't necessarily need Drakes to secure their late game, where I'd say the other side does, and considering the earliest that they'd be able to start pressuring at a soul is around the 30-minute mark, that's already, once you're reaching that late game, and this Victor and this Sivir are going to be hitting their 3-item spikes.
That's very true. It's not necessarily like an imminent threat, but it is still something that they should be thinking about as they go along in the game here. But looking towards the current state of the map, the only thing available is actually going to be this Rift Herald, so it'll be interesting to see if it'll be given away to Oblivion eSports by TFC, or there'll be some sort of fight to contest it, or they will even go for it at all, as the Singe is actually just looking to go to the bot jungle instead and try and make some mayhem happen.
Play for Vision! Ward Wars! That's what this game is all about, cutting off these sightlines, recognizing that there is this impending pressure, as bot side tier 1 does go over to Team Fried Chicken, but it is responded with this tier 1 mid side, as the top side ring for Team Fried Chicken has fallen, but they've picked up the outers that Oblivion have left behind.
Very respectful play there from TFC. They saw that the Singe was already on the side beforehand. They noticed that the Lissandra was missing from the map. Should have been answering the top side wave, maybe even the bot side lane as well. So they're like, just give it. We don't have to worry about it. We already got the bot tower, so it's technically going to be an even trade. They had to commit more resources to get that, so overall we'll be happy with that. And I think really very key that they're going to be playing a lot of these interactions a bit more conservatively rather than trying to actually aggressively contest some things, because that can lead to the game snowballing instead of just trying to sit back and say we have Victor, we have Ornn, we have Sivir.
Exactly. That passivity, in a sense, is only going to lend itself to Team Fried Chicken as they have this late game pretty much on lock, unless there are, of course, these late game huge picks, because the damage that'll come out of Mentos and Bardo and Youngland is going to be quite significant, and with Stet just creating chaos, these fights are going to be very a-traditional to try and play out, so they may never be given that standard front to back that they want to play. So I do like your recognition as well that they just don't want to give themselves other avenues to fall behind, because it's still going to be a tricky game to play out no matter what, as we've got a teleport.
Ghost happening on the Caitlyn. Let's see what they can get. Anything here. Predator popped.
See what they can do. Predator popped, and the root is down. The knockback is here as a quick couple kills. Isolated by Oblivion. Baron's up in 15. If they want to go for it, bot lane down, this is an option.
It is an option indeed, and with 2 members down on the side of TSC, they will actually push out the mid wave here, committing the to clear out the wave. Singed buying some space, but instead of actually just starting up the objective, they want to go and try to poke them out, make sure that this is absolutely guaranteed, but the Victor damage on that death ray is going to be super critical in playing out these fights. If the Victor can get off 1 or 2 good E's, then the entire team of Oblivion will have to back off, as they are going to contest this. Jarvan going on the flank here, but we'll see how they play out the rest of this.
Here's the contest. The respawns are here. Instead says that's the go button. Bardo is low. Youngman is under pressure, but still nothing quite yet. 3-man knockup from the Ornn Horde, but a flash into the Caitlyn trap. Not enough damage. Stet continues to try and buy space. Mentos healing up what he can inside the frozen tomb, while it's still no one going down quite yet. Flashing health bars, and the first kill of this fight is going to be a shutdown on a Bardo support. Less damage from Mentos. Younglan wants to find an answer. Stet is here. Jincel is showing, waiting for that set. Headhunt somehow still alive. The shield gives him life for only a moment longer, and the stall is here. But now 4 members strong. There's options, but instead, it does appear that Team Fried Chicken just want to pick up that Drake and start stacking those mountains.
Yeah, don't want to go for this Baron. It's way too risky. Their health bars are already kind of iffy in the first place, but we'll instead just commit for this Mountain Dragon here. And with a full tank Jarvan and a tank Ornn on the enemy team here, powered up by the Seraphine Sustain, it's going to be super difficult if these Mountain Dragons are allowed to stack on the side of TFC for Oblivion to make a dent into the front line. And it sort of raises a question of, is this Singed build therefore good in this sense? Because it's going to be full tank and there's not going to be much additional damage, and I think adding in something like a Demonic or a Rylai's early on into your build instead of going for the Chem Tank into what is looking like a Force of Nature is actually going to be efficient enough to get the Singe done. Is it really going to be a problem? Because without damage on the poison, you can kind of just ignore it for the most part. So not quite sure how that works out, and probably will be going to either the Demonic or the Rylai's after their Force of Nature, but we'll have to see the build path.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion, where I think the sooner that you make this Singed also a damage threat in addition to just being annoying, it makes these fights that much harder to play, because if the Singed is never letting you get your team fight set up, if he's constantly chunking out this Seraphine, if he's finding some chunk or some shred onto the tanks, it makes the game that much easier for Mentos and Youngland to try and play out, as we already see the Phantom Dancer completed for this Caitlyn, building towards that Lord Dominic's, and once that LDR gets completed, that's what I'm expecting Oblivion to maybe look to try and start some fighting.
Exactly, and the Rift Herald will be dropped in the bottom side of the map, and I mean, it probably was expiring in the first place, so had to drop it regardless, but that does mean that they have a little bit more pressure down there. Can look to actually start up pressuring the Baron if they put too many members towards the side of the bot lane to answer the Rift Herald Singe. So a little bit of a trap here, as you can see them sort of hovering around the Baron pit and pushing out the mid waves, just kind of laying in wait, see if they actually take the bait of this Rift Herald. It doesn't look like they will, and they've decided to really call off the play there. Caitlyn the Sandra backing, and nothing will result from this, but I do like the idea of, okay, well, if we're going to drop it in one lane because we have to, let's see if they take something.
Yeah, I like the idea as well, but the trouble is Stet just does not quite yet have that teleport up. while Gru does. So this Ornn would be able to respond to those fights faster. You need this Singe to try and take this Rift Herald timing as an opportunity to cross map, and instead it just results in that Herald getting wasted. It is unfortunate, but still, with both teams having these outers really starting to fall and having fallen all completely in favor of Team Fried Chicken, it does make this game a little bit hard to play out. Stet looking for some damage, good unstoppable out of Gru.
Yeah, very good, unstoppable indeed, and there's not that much kill pressure onto the Ornn in the 1v1. In fact, I argue it's the exact opposite. The Singe has to be a little bit more careful about it out. And, you can see just how little damage, even though Flip is percent max HP, you only get that off once every 6 seconds or so. That's not nearly enough DPS, and it kind of gets tricky to actually navigate the 1v1 there, because it's just going to be Singe walks up, pushes the waves, the Ornn falls back, and then answers the wave as it pushes into the tower. And it's going to be like that on repeat for the next few minutes before something actually happens. So we'd like to see that the Singe be a little bit more proactive, use that Predator to its fullest extent. There is no mid-outer tower. So if someone tries to look for a mid push, like here, you can actually press Predator, you can press Chem Tank, and just run down.
Yeah, there is that rundown potential, and I think I just noticed Chainbest picked up for Stet. This reads like he's looking towards, if I'm not mistaken, a Dead Man's on top of that Force of Nature he's already got the components for.
Does read like that. I'm not quite sure which way he's going to be leaning. Of course, I think the biggest threat on the team right now is the Victor, so it makes sense to complete the Force of Nature. But again, it's such a lack of damage that I'm not sure that you necessarily need all this tanky stats, because once again, one of the big points of Singed is that his ultimate, the Insanity Potion, gives you so much raw stats, and it allows you to be so tanky while also being able to build things like the Demonic Embrace that still give you health but add on extra oomph to a lot of your abilities.
Yeah, it is that extra oomph. Is still find the ground. Arger not going to be able to do too much, as you can see Mentos just lying in wait, hoping someone springs the trap, but instead no one able to find it quite yet. But so far this game is pretty much dead even. Gold dead even. Towers just one advantage of Team Fried Chicken, and Dragons now looking to also be evened up, as it looks like Oblivion eSports are starting to move their members down in preparation for this Drake.
We'll have a lot of the members of the game sort of aggregating towards this dragon, but without a lot of help, the Lux cannot get vision effectively, and all you can see is that there's a pink ward in the pixel that will be shortly cleared, and one sort of normal ward in the back of the pit and on the side there. So not much vision going on, as a little bit of engagement will not result in anything but poke, but Singe on the side does mean that they're playing a little bit more respectfully. Do appreciate that, but we'll have to see. TP coming in. This is actually going to be a huge fight.
And they're getting grouped in. This is exactly what Lissandra wants. The Ornn is, and the tank is in the fight. Jarvan already taken out of the picture, but a big encore means trouble for the side of Oblivion, but still everyone left standing. Headhunt's going to try and deal what he can with that Moonstone. It's helping out Younglin, it's helping out Mentos, and the Caitlyn is free firing, and that's just going to be a clean ace, or near clean ace, as Mentos the only to fall, but still kills across the board as Oblivion blow this game wide open.
Absolutely, and one of the key features there was Stet just absolutely blitzing the backline there, buying so much space for them to actually DPS down the front line. And yeah, sure, Mentos does go down, but in the exchange you get a 5-for-1, you get the dragon, and you're moving towards the Baron. I don't know if I actually like that one, considering they're just now spawning, so don't know how that one's going to play out, but we'll see how it goes.
Spawns are close. Remember, our group does have the teleport. Baron will go down relatively quickly, but not quick enough before Jackie Chan can get here and try and wreak some havoc. No Cataclysm available, but still, that challenging smite is here. Final spark pop. Jackie Chan trying to get around the side. Stet playing interference, and that is going to be the Baron secured, and now it's the flurry as these backs are channeling, and that's just highway robbery out of Oblivion.
Good recognition on the DPS. I personally wasn't even sure that they could do it, but they still managed to do it. And it's actually, I noticed a specific interaction there that I didn't really think about in the beginning of the game. But because Ivern can place down bushes, they can actually effectively increase Caitlyn's DPS because of the double headshot counter. So, didn't actually think about that, but that certainly helped them there in the situation. But Sivir is just going to get run down here.
Oh no, grounded up, and while there is that spell shield for the moment, still waiting, the Ornhorn is popped. Mentos isn't here. A lot of damage off the table, but a bigger pair of ultimates already burned.
I mean, really great. The only thing that really burned on the side of Oblivion was the Singed ulti and the Chem Tank, but other than that, we'll still be able to siege this for nothing. The Ornn ulti's down, the Sivir ulti's down, and of course Sivir is still Sivir, can wave clear the wave, but looking a little bit dicey as the 5-man unit of tries to break down this, and they just don't have the capability.
Can't quite do it. Both teams sort of A-ramming. Mentos recognizing that this isn't a position that they can try and fight anymore, so is going to head down, finally break open that bot lane tier 1, as Oblivion really want to start cracking open these tier 2s, start really freeing up Stet to just become a menace on the Rift and be able to run wherever he wants, as this Baron does still need to find more. Are seeing the standard 1-3-1 setup come through, but Mentos taking a reset off of a pretty healthy chunk of change he's sitting on.
Yeah, Caitlyn has established the line, the Maginot line, mid lane right there. So, no passing, but of course that will probably be broken eventually. It will last for only about 45 seconds, I believe, is the timer on the Caitlyn trap. I'm not too sure about the exact number, but it is not that long of a duration.
It's like the actual Maginot line.
Exactly, yeah. So it's a perfect analogy.
It looks really scary, and you just walk around it.
Well, yeah, actually, you can just walk around it in this case because you can just flank from the jungle. But back to the game. Let's not get into history.
I'm a history major. Give me my moments.
Yeah, let's hope history does not repeat itself, though, and Oblivion can finish this game out as looking to be in a very strong position. We continue on to the later stages of the game. Of course, as we get later and later, and TFC get more and more items, they will become stronger and stronger. So, looking at the actual win condition here, they still aren't that far behind, and they've managed to hold on to a lot of their towers and a lot of their structures, even through the Baron buff here. The Baron buff is going to be expiring very shortly. TP coming through for the Singe. They do ping it, and nothing will come of it, but it looks like Oblivion is just trying to make use of the last bit of the Baron, but it will expire, and overall, aside from the initial gold value and the general map pressure that it offers, didn't really get much from that Baron play.
Yeah, didn't get a ton. More so just that second Mountain Drake, as the third for both teams would be spawning, or the third Mountain Drake is going to be spawning in just a minute. Oh, but Stet wants to find somebody. Does just pop all of the move speed buttons, and that's one thing I will say, it is very fun to just sort of say let's go, but one of the advantages between having so many different go buttons is you can layer them if you need to have that constant threat.
Mid tower will fall. Victor taking a huge chunk there.
Oh my.
That's a 4-item Caitlyn if I've ever seen one.
That is a 4-item Caitlyn indeed. IE and LDR picked up, so absolutely massive. Whereas on the other side, Jincell still about an item behind, but enabled as far as the Sivir. Those bouncing blades are really going to be packing a punch with the Kraken passive on top of them. So are going to see exactly how these fights continue to play out. I like this measured pacing from the side of Team Fried Chicken, whereas Oblivion still just trying to pressure this bot side are going to be able to dash away.
Looked a bit interesting there. Maybe the adhesive didn't come down in time, or maybe it was just out of it, but I feel like that should have been grounded. Either way, will make us, and it will just be an objective give towards Oblivion eSports. The Predator being popped, adhesive dropping down, but this is an ore. Alright, well, I can't say I didn't expect much else, but certainly having a little fun there.
That is some certified Singe behavior. That's what that was.
That was certainly a Singe play. I cannot argue against that one, but they will just take the Mountain Dragon there. Sole point for the side of Oblivion eSports, as we'll be looking to try and look for the Baron, as we'll be spawning in a minute here. No wards set up, no real vision in the top side of jungle, but you can imagine that that's what we're going to be looking to. About a 5k gold lead, a little bit less than that actually. So Oblivion definitely want to exercise this in any way possible.
Yeah, always wanting to try and find these leads, find these opportunities, as they want to continue the scaling. But as we mentioned in the last game, the later this game goes, the less the gold lead means. As only about 4k behind is Team Fried Chicken, and they have the ornaments starting to come through as well. So that means that this gold lead is starting to get negated, but the absolute power of the carries on the side of Oblivion can also not be underestimated.
Certainly. I mean, when you look at the ADC item difference, yes, that is a massive one. You essentially have an entire Phantom Dancer up on your opposing laner. But the thing is that it's the difference of how these champions want to play fights. Caitlyn is much more single target, while Sivir can spread that damage out with her ricochets and her boomerang blade. So, despite being down that gold, they still can actually put out a lot more damage than the Caitlyn, especially if given the space. So, we'll have to see how it plays out, but of course, putting the trap line down makes it super difficult, limits how they can actually enter this river, and they're just going to start it up with the Caitlyn Ivern not even doing it. They're just sending Daisy and saying, we're going to zone the rest of it. And I really like this play here, because Daisy's the only one that needs to tank, and they'll just take it.
I don't think they realized that the Baron was actually being taken with how only the Caitlyn was not seen on the map, and some fantastic map play with Mentos in the bot side picking up that inner as well. So really, really good rotations, that gold lead continuing to expand, and as well as just the map lead finally swinging in favor of Oblivion as Team Fried Chicken held it for the majority of the mid game.
Absolutely, and that was just really good use of vision. They don't know where the rest of the team is. They don't know what position they're walking into. The only avenue that they have is try to force their way into the river through several layers of bushes, through several layers of no vision, and they decided that it's really not going to be worth it. We'd rather just take it. Sivir has pretty much a lot of free reign, a lot of easy, quick rotations, because the only thing up is either the top inner or the 2 inhib turrets. So decided to say, we can actually just weather this storm no problem with Sivir wave clear, and we're going to play through that. That being said, though, Caitlyn is full build. A little bit scary.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what she could do with... Yeah, we saw what she can do when she has just a little bit less than this at 4 items to the victor, and I mean, headshots, of course, scale quite nicely with crit chance and crit damage, so we'll have to see just how much damage this Caitlyn's going to be doing with a headshot to the members of TFC in the late game. But for now, we'll be using the Baron. Right now, looks like they're actually going to take a 3v1 though, or 1-3-1, excuse me, as Singe is going to be sort of perusing the top jungle.
Applying this pressure as they're trying to sandwich this team in, as we're already seeing those headshot crits in the 2k range on the minions.
Oh my god.
That's still, this is 100% crit chance Caitlyn.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be constant, 7, 8, 900 damage crits with those headshots being even more. If this Ornn isn't able to soak a couple of those autos, the targets are just going to melt. So how do you think the side of Team Fried Chicken can get this Caitlyn off the map?
It's going to be super difficult because you have to look for some type of flank angle with the Jarvan, but even then you have to... Is there enough damage? And that's where you sort of have to play and say, we realize that we're going to lose stuff on the rest of the map, but I can't speak anymore because that's just dead.
Yeah, Bogtail's just dead. There's nothing else to say. The Singed pick, while we initially saw it as primarily an Ornn counter, it has just become the way that Oblivion wants to play through their engage, play their mid game, look for their pick potential. As we said that this was a pick team, this is not a team fighting team, and once they get that pick, they are starting to run over your base. As Stet looking for more, but it does seem it's just going to be the inhib, and Younglin wants to fight. Not sure if the rest of the team does. This Caitlyn's very far forward.
450 crits onto the Ornn, just absolutely melting it as Hasif dropped down, but of course the Seraphine beat drop will slow him down significantly, prevent further from happening, but that's 2 inhibs gone, and they don't even have Baron anymore.
You don't have Baron, but you know what is up? That all-important Dragon Soul for Oblivion, as they are going to try to pick up that Mountain Soul. Of course, this is a forced fight position where you lose that Mountain Soul. There's just no one who can ever cut through this Singed, but he's preventing the jungler from even making it to the pit. This is just a game of stall the fight, stall things from going down, as it is going to be Smite secured. Mountain Soul for Oblivion eSports, as the only thing that is holding Team Fried Chicken together is the potential for their Wombo combo.
I mean, it looks like it's just going to be the end of the game here. Mountain Soul present, that is a massive shield onto the Caitlyn, and not to mention the overall tankiness. A good unstoppable, actually good way on the unstoppable. I misread the animation there. We'll burn the flash to get to safety anyway, and right now, because there are no Baron minions, of course, the Sivir can wave clear perfectly fine, and no problems there, but it's going to become much more difficult with the inhibitors down, as the Baron will be spawning in a minute 40. Although it's a bit further away, inhibitors will have to be taken again, but with the Baron pressure, it will certainly mean that the end of the game is going to be drawing close.
Yeah, it's drawing near, and even if Oblivion does not have this momentous position where they can just end the game, it's still incredibly difficult for the side of TFC to run all the way down the map, because while they do have some great wave clear, they're not super fast, and it would take a very commanding lead for them to try and get even an inhibitor back with how many towers are standing in the way.
You're absolutely right there, but looking at sort of items and methods to actually win fights now, despite being 9k down, we are getting into that range where that gold lead doesn't really have much of a meaning. If you look at the items on the side of TFC, Victor is almost at 6 items. In fact, is well ahead of the Lissandra in terms of damage output. The Sivir is pretty much equal. Of course, the BS sword versus the Bloodthirster will mean quite a significant difference, but you know, you're not going to be too mad at that considering you're 9k gold down. That's the only real tangible difference. Your tanks aren't necessarily the tankiest, sure, but it could be much worse than this, and it's kind of smoothing out, and we're going to see how TFC decide to play these fights. Calls of Forge God going down, though.
Looking for it just right now, but the Encore didn't bounce off the Ord, and their big teamfight Wombo combo is taken off the map as a teleport down and Supers are reaching the base. That's going in, looking for more, and oh no, the Caitlyn just shreds the Ornn, and the front line is gone, as they don't need to wait for minions, just go in the base, try to end the game. They're waiting to find this final inhibitor turret. Want to play for that 100%? That speedrun any percent. But in reality, this is the 100% clear, as it is going to be the inhibitor turret taken down, the inhibitor soon to follow, and with super minions marching forward, Oblivion have their eyes set on the Nexus.
3 teams at the top of the standings. Look like he'll go to Game 3. I can't think of a more fitting ending to the series than this, but we'll have to see, as there's one last stand available for TFC here. But Chunk going down.
One last stand, and the Jarvan goes in, but there's no follow-up from the rest of the team. They've all been zoned out by this Sings, and the final Nexus turret falls. Youngland free firing on the Nexus, and that is going to be Oblivion eSports taking us to game number 3.
Very measured game from Oblivion eSports coming out there, looking at a lot of the late game options that TFC had and saying, we're going to be the aggressors this time around. You were the ones last game. We have the Singe, we have the pick comp, and we're going to look and force things. And they really did a good job at displaying a lot of the power that comes with some of these picks. That comes especially with that Singed pick, where yeah, it didn't do the most damage. It wasn't really out there being a threat to the backline, but just having them forced away, being that presence there in the backline, provides so much time for Caitlyn in a lot of the mid-game fights to shred through the Ornn and the Jarvan and be able to then win the fight from there. So really well played from Oblivion, but also good fight from TFC, because they also had a lot of fights where just a little bit more damage coming out would have made the difference. So a lot of very good plays here, and I'm looking forward to Game 3 personally.
Yeah, I am as well. I'm looking forward to Game 3 because these two teams have shown that they can play some really intriguing styles, and the pick composition working this time for Oblivion. But we won't get to see what styles these two teams want to take until game number 3. We're going to go to a very, very quick break before we have the conclusion between the two top teams in this group. And the decider for who is leading the way this season, you're not going to want to miss it.
To the Risen recap. Today we're looking towards Risen Unstoppable, and the stream started off with a bang. Quicksand asleep.
It's the first game of Unstoppable Risen Premade. Come on, get up.
But I gotta say, he was smooth once he rolled into it. And our first series was Big Bongo Boys playing up against Clarity Black. For the first 20 minutes of the game, it was a bit of fighting in the top lane, but not much happened besides that.
Oh, but the engage coming out from Sejuani, but it's trading back, and Maokai actually regenerated a lot more health than I would expected there.
For Boxer Squirrel, just really those kind of impacts making a huge difference in the gold.
Yeah, and I don't know whether I want to call them Triple B, BBB, or Big Bongo Boys, because they're not all same solos.
Then there was a mega turnaround fight for the Big Bongo Boys after they made a big dragon attempt, but then they got challenged again for the dragon attempt, which Big Bongo Boys won the fight towards.
on this side, and there's a 3v2 on the other side, but I can't punch to it, and I can't cut to it. But Boxer Scroll in the midst of it all, unable to get too much out, but finds the Q before he's last. Dies, and Chicken Fried Rice 200 Steve with good depth does not unfortunately have the W enough up to heal him. And they call comes back in the circuit, but finds one. Can she find two? No, she gets shut down, and the exchange of lives is so insane. Can Maokai find the damage to Treble back? And he does, but unfortunately, it is the ace on the side of CLB that allows them to get this dragon.
Much later in the game, Big Bongo Boys chased Akali down in the bot lane, meaning that Clarity Black had so much freedom to take that first Baron, and from that Baron, they spiraled away from a teamfight and took the victory.
The higher ranked Clarity Black, and honestly, still
find
performing
Akali
extremely well.
Oh, and she can't get out, simply tries to ulti over the wall, but that's crucial. 4 members sent down. This is the freest Baron I've seen, and it's incredibly hard to siege anything. As we're talking about that, the dragon does in fact spawn.
This will be a very important fight. Dragon Soul on the line. Let's see.
We talk about one side. We talk about
And welcome back to the thrilling conclusion between Team Fried Chicken and Oblivion eSports. I'm still J Turbo, joined alongside Graham, and I've got an homage to Stet behind me. I've got the Beekeeper Singed, the absolute playmaker of last game.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that you have like every league champion in your living with you, but you know, looks like it works out today as we grab Singed for the guest camp. But looking at bans overall, pretty interesting that the Heimerdinger has actually into the first round of bans here. I believe my memory serves me correct. That's going to be dropping not the Lucian, but I believe the Maokai. So that will be available.
And the Seraphine.
The Seraphine is also up, so will be interesting to see what they go for here. Will it be a first pick Maokai? I would not be mad at it, as yes, of course it will be. This champion is quite absurd, and
like, all right, Okay, that's it. I'm bringing the Maokai back.
Yeah, just quickly
There
get him
he
back
is.
into the room. All right, excellent. Yeah, so Singed had his time. He had his cameo, but back to
I'm
Maokai.
gonna bring him in for a little longer.
Yeah.
But so Maokai, standard stuff. We've talked about him before
Mhm.
game 1. Incredibly strong. As now Oblivion, I'm really intrigued with their answer. I'm expecting them to still stick to the Caitlyn, but actually going back to that Kindred from game number 1.
Still could be the Caitlyn lock-in, though. They do have, of course, 2 picks here in the first rotation. Would be kind of surprised to see it go over, as the Caitlyn has 100% win rate in this set so far, and, you know, despite the Sivir side not actually looking that bad in either of the games, it just looks like the Caitlyn kind of gets out of hand no matter what, and without it being banned, I would be surprised if it goes through, because giving over Maokai and then Caitlyn Lux, but they will just take the Seraphine, meaning that it probably will just be a Caitlyn Lux lock-in for TFC.
Yeah, and then there is of course that Seraphine. I think that another option we haven't seen as much of, but is still pretty viable, would be putting the Kai'Sa into the bot lane. She's also a very strong pick at the moment, and it really is determinant on how Oblivion wants to play out this game. Team Fried Chicken still waiting on that lock-in. Would be remiss if there was not a Caitlyn, as again, Caitlyn, 100% presence this series, as she has, in my opinion, been one of the difference makers so far.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw just how much damage a late game Caitlyn can do in that last game, and we might get to that same level again. I mean, both of the games in this set have gone quite late, so would be a little bit out of character for these two teams if all of a sudden we end up with a 20-minute game. So we'll see, but maybe we'll see. But of course, the Lux was locked in. They were probably just taking that time to discuss what was coming after that pick. Of course, just using that time as much as possible. And the Camille Hover, I don't know how I feel about a lot of that, but we'll have to see. It is locked in. Maybe they're thinking it's a Maokai top. I would have to agree with them. Just looking at OPGGs and looking at champion pools, it definitely does fit into top laner playstyle much more than the jungle, but, you know, it still is a flex pick. I mean, Maokai is going to be good no matter where you put him. Of course, the Caitlyn Lux is most certainly going to be there, so that limits down to only top or jungle, but the Urgot ban there then is interesting to me, because if you pick Camille as an answer to Maokai, then the Urgot ban doesn't make sense, but we'll have to see where they go with a lot of their draft, and maybe they just wanted the Camille for their top laner, and they wanted Stet to be on such a comfort pick.
Yeah, could just be playing towards that comfort. I, too, am a little bit confused by this Urgot ban. Could just be recognizing that no matter where this Maokai is going, he's going to be really tanky, so we want that true damage to be able to just cut through him, to chop down that tree. But the Sivir taken off the table, so we will not be seeing a Sivir in game 3 times in a row. As the Udyr as well did get some quality of life buffs, is a lot stronger, in my opinion, does have a few more build paths than just that Sunfire into Demonic route. Still powerful, but there are a few alternates that you can look into, so that Udyr not going to be allowed onto the Rift. And his final ban, not sure what Team Fried Chicken is going to want to do, and they're just going to get rid of the next big support name in the Misfortune, really pushing Oblivion towards that Kai'Sa.
It will be a bit of an awkward one, though. Caitlyn into Kai'Sa is extremely rough, especially when you add on the Lux there. So,
what about Twitch?
Twitch, I feel, is also too weak. The Ashe is a more traditional answer, though, because one of the best ways to answer Caitlyn is just say, I have a jungler, and I'm going to set up for that. Do you like the Ashe, though? It is a bit weird, because now you're looking at the team, and it's, where is your front line? But the Varus actually swap over. This is a champion that has been popping up all over the world. And it's still yet to be seen, at least in my opinion, whether or not that pick is worth going for, but we've seen it a lot in a lot of Champions Queue games and a lot of solo queue for pro players, and it has been picked a decent amount in Worlds so far, so we'll see how it goes in this game. It is technically a really strong laner and can work into Caitlyn, especially after level 6. You get the corrupted chains, and you're going to be able to do a lot of CC and just set up a lot for your team there. But the Jax lock into the Camille, very, very standard answer. I love this answer, and it will be a Maokai jungle. That means, so looks like the read was wrong, and they were sort of correct on the Urgot and the Udyr bans, because I believe that is an Udyr top ban. It would make the most sense considering they have locked in the Camille R3 and they want to protect it as much as possible. The Vladimir Hover, and they will go for a very late team.
Yes, very late game, but it's also just an inevitable team.
Yeah.
In a sense, where this Maokai becomes unkillable, Jax will just sit in the side lane and farm, and we've all seen Vladimir's hit 35 minutes, and it is not a pretty sight. On the other side, Oblivion, a little bit more scattered, but they have some pretty central pick into team fight playstyle, as we are going to see the Swain locked in as the answer, so it gives them a bit of a no-fly zone if this Jax or Maokai ever do choose to go in. But overall, I'm liking the scaling out of TFC, but there's not a ton of identity that I can really spot from either side.
It's a bit awkward, and I'm kind of torn to which draft I'm fan of the least, honestly. And I think I don't really like Oblivion's comp, because at least on TFC you have really strong power picks. You have the Maokai, you have the Caitlyn Lux, and you have the Jackson that can just win games, but at the same time, the Caitlyn Lux wants to snowball early, while the Jax, the Vladimir, and the Maokai all just, we're going to sit, we're going to wait for team fights. So it kind of feels a bit weird. It still can work, because of course Caitlyn does scale. It's not an early game and one and done type champion. You will still reach that point, as we saw earlier. But moving over to Oblivions, I feel like there's not enough frontline. You have so much backline. You have the Seraphine, the Varus, and the Kindred, and you're sort of relying on pseudo tanks. You have the Swain, which can kind of drain tank depending on how they build, and you have the Camille, which sure can tank a little bit, but at the end of the day, Camille has more of a assassin type playstyle. It's not a full assassin where you're going in, you're one-shotting someone, you're getting out, but you want to dive the backline. You want to make the ADC feel uncomfortable, and it's kind of hard to do that when you have a Maokai that can interrupt a lot of your plans. You have a Lux that can shield, and you have a Jax that can sort of stop the scale early on. So I'm not quite sure how Oblivion can play the game out, because they don't necessarily win the scaling game, but I don't see a lot of proactivity in the early game either. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how they play this out, and maybe it's just a statement of, this is all comfort for us, so we're going to be able to play this no matter what, and we're all very familiar with these champions, and we're going to win just through comfort. So I'm not quite sure, but I'm favoring TFC in this game so far.
Yeah, TFC looking pretty strong, but one thing I will say towards Oblivion is that this Kindred, it didn't look all that great in game one, but with this not being into a Graves, with it going into a Maokai and a much slower jungle matchup where this Kindred is going to be a little bit more favored in that 1v1, there is some potential for snowball if the jungler for Oblivion can start to ramp up and find these opportunities. And of course, you can never discount the strength of an Encore, but as we saw last game, it's not the insurance policy that it's not a perfect insurance policy.
Right, and I think as I'm sort of trying to work out Oblivion's comp in my head and trying to figure out what is the optimal play style for it, I think the best way to put it is that you want to sort of fight back. You want to wait for them to throw their engages out, and you want to be able to say, cool, you use your abilities, we have weathered the storm, and we're going to come and fight back now that you don't have abilities. And I think that's kind of what they're going for here. You have the Kindred to stall for time, you have the Swain ulti to buy space, even the Seraphine Encore to buy just a little bit of time. The Varus corrupting chains can come down and zone off a lot of members. So even if the twisting advance from the Maokai comes through, you're going to have a lot of obstacles on the side of TFC to actually try and get and engage onto Oblivion eSports, provided that they're able to get somewhat tanky and be able to live throughout the first half of the damage. Because if that's the case, then the Swain can kind of take over the fight, say, you don't have any cooldowns left. Either way, though, I think the Kindred ulti is going to be key here, and if any member gets caught out of it, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, it's going to be a game of watching the ultis from Oblivion and seeing the scaling out of Team Fried Chicken, as both of these squads currently undefeated in series score, and one of them will have to take their first loss of the season, and the other will take the lead in the group. Thrilling conclusion to this matchup for your Premade Dominate week number 5, coming up right after a very, very short break.
Back to the Risen recap. Today we're looking towards Risen Unstoppable, and the stream started off with a bang, Quicksand asleep.
It's the first game of Unstoppable Risen Premade! Come on, get up,
But I gotta say, he was smooth once he rolled into it. And our first series was Big Bongo Boys playing up against Clarity Black. For the first 20 minutes of the game, it was a bit of fighting in the top lane, but not much happened besides that.
Oh, but the engage coming out from Sejuani, but it's traded back, and Maokai actually regenerated a lot more health than I would expected there.
For Boxer Squirrel, just really those kind of impacts making a huge difference in the gold.
Yeah, and I don't know whether I want to call them Triple B, BBB, or Big Bongo Boys, because they're not all same solos.
Then there was a mega turnaround fight for the Big Bongo Boys after they made a big dragon attempt, but then they got challenged again for the dragon attempt, which Big Bongo Boys won the fight towards.
On this side, and there's a 3 on the other side, but I can't punch to it, and I can't punch to it. But Boxer Scroll in the midst of it all, unable to get too much out, but finds the Q before his last dies, and Chicken Fried Rice to escape with good depth does not unfortunately have the W enough up to heal up, and they call comes back in the circuit, flip finds one, can she find two? No, she gets shut down, and the exchange of lives is so insane. Can Maokai find the damage retrieval back? And he does, but unfortunately, it is the ace on the side of CLB that allows them to get this dragon.
Much later in the game, Big Bongo Boys chased Akali down in the bot lane, meaning that Clarity Black had so much freedom to take that first Baron, and from that Baron, they spiraled away from a teamfight and took the victory.
The higher ranked Clarity Black, and honestly, still
find
performing
Akali.
extremely well.
Oh, and she can't get out, simply tries to ulti over the wall, but that's crucial. 4 members sent down. This is the freest Baron I've seen, and it's incredibly hard to siege anything. As we're talking about that, the dragon does in fact spawn.
This will be a very important fight. Dragon Soul on the line. Let's see.
This is so easy, and the onslaught of shadows into all of the members. We talk about Wombo on one side, we talk about Wombo on the other side, but the whole time is not correctly pinned on enough members to make it worth it and to make it so this. Take
They don't.
and they look to
Was
the Jericho's and
And welcome back as we are getting in to game number 3 of Team Fried Chicken up against Oblivion eSports. Oblivion in the red, the Fried Chicken in the blue, as we've seen this group up every single game from Oblivion, but now it seems like the side of Fried Chicken are ready.
I'm gonna try to get it as much luck as I can because I feel like you're gonna about to cut me off in a few seconds here, but this is gonna be an interesting one here. As it looks like Caitlin's gonna be stepping forward here, a little bit far away. They probably saw her here.
Hookshot, drop, flash,
Oh.
good patience, and now it's
Oh
a
my
whole
God.
fight. Head to root out of the Swain. Jackie Chan dropping low. No one dying quite yet somehow. Arger trying to run away, and did level 1. No one's winning quite yet. Another big root. First blood to the Swain, but answered back. The counter-strike finds a stun, Set runs away, and the initial invade started off by Oblivion results in a couple kills for the Caitlyn.
That was quite a fiesta there. A lot of summoner spells burned on either side there. But importantly, some of the members will actually keep a lot of their important sums there. The bod kill, both having Ghost and Flash, and of course Stet will remain on the Flash, while pretty much every other member has to go into the lane without their Flash. Of course, meant Flash, so lane will kind of even out. The no Ghost does limit the mobility, but for the most part, it will be quite a start for the Caitlyn here on the bot
my.
side. Double longsword. Did have to use a pot in order to stay alive there, but it will be a huge response to it. I believe she could have been able to buy a little bit more, but maybe I'm overreacting to that. Maybe she burned a little bit more pots and actually bought some. I would have to go back and watch it.
So she got 2 kills, so that would have just been 600 flat off of a full net buy down to 0, so was sitting on just 250 after leaving base. So it does
I
still
guess
have
so.
some change in pocket.
Well, it's 750 because of First Blood, so...
No, the first blood was on the Swain.
Was it on Swain?
Yes.
Oh, you're right. Never mind. So yeah, it is 600. I'm just, I forgot the order of which kills happened. But yes, you're right. So you couldn't buy anything more than that.
Oh wait, Mentos?
A little bit of a disconnect there. That's unfortunate. Oh, it looks like it might have been a bit more than that, as several people are disconnecting. I don't know exactly how it's going to affect, but it looks like they reconnected. Unfortunately, though, that does mean that that's a kill given over to Mentos, or given over to the bod kill, unless they decide to, homie, reset the lane entirely, and just say, whoops, our mid laner disconnected there, but we'll have to find out, as unsure what the actual problem is going to be.
Yeah,
in this.
not 100% sure, as does seem that a couple internet issues from the bot, from the support and mid laner for the side of Oblivion eSports. Mentos' reconnect has come through, so hopefully that'll mean we can get this game back underway. But still, I think we still have some to unpack from that level 1, where this Caitlyn, we've been talking about how it's felt like the only consistency across both wins today, and being so accelerated with 2 early kills, how is that going to impact this early to mid game?
It does mean that, of course, the laning is going to be much more difficult for the Varus and the Seraphine to actually sustain, because just so much more AD and so much more trade potential coming through there, in addition to all the pressure that already comes with Caitlyn Lux. But transitioning to mid lane, it means that you're going to be able to, or mid game, excuse me, it means that you're going to be able to get more push on the bot side, which means that you can rotate to dragons faster, which means that you can influence the mid lane matchup faster, and overall it creates a very important cascade for the side of TFC, so that they can start to snowball the game from that point on. So I would like to see how they play that out, and if they're actually going to use this advantage that the Caitlyn has grabbed from that level 1.
Yeah, we are going to have to see exactly how that advantage will play out. As Mentos going back and forth with his disconnects and reconnects, and that's so unfortunate because we had so few technical issues before getting into this final game, and now on the decider, the statement for who leads the group is sort of marred by these connectivity issues that could lead to another advantage for the side of Team Fried Chicken.
Yeah, and I would like to see if the bod kill actually just does let Mentos walk away here and just show some sportsmanship. I don't blame him if he doesn't, by the way. Competitive game, all's fair. So no shaming either way, but would be a nice show of just sportsmanship in general. But it is unfortunate that does mean that the Vladimir will be starting off with an extra 2 stacks onto that Dark Seal there. But shifting away from sort of what this means, I want to talk about a little bit more on summoner spells and the runes, because we didn't really get a chance to do that, because there are some interesting options here, especially when we look at the Maokai, because Aftershock is something that a lot of Maokais I don't think actually like taking. It is a good rune on him, but a lot of the times when you pop the Twisting Advance, it'll speed past you and you won't get the full value out of the resistances, so a lot of Maokais actually opt for Phase Rush. I personally don't think one is better than the other. I think the champion is still just going to be Maokai. So it is an interesting option to go for, but looking at top lane matchup specifically, it's Grasp Camille taking Flash, and so the kill pressure in the lane matchup is going to be much less because there's no Ignite, and it also means that there's no Conqueror for overall trade advantages, but it does mean that the Grasp will allow them to scale into a bit tankier overall. So a little bit of a trade-off going on in a lot of the runes and the summoner spells that they're showing, but does mean that they are sort of defining their game plan as they go on into the game, meaning that Stet doesn't want to be that one that's like, all right, I'm going to be killing. They just want to be a nuisance. They want to have a high health total and be pretty difficult to actually deal with. So a little bit of an exchange there, and I thought it was pretty interesting to actually touch on.
Yeah, definitely, as we are seeing really the identities that these teams want to look towards, and I think that's a great point you bring up with the Camille going for that Grasp, going for that tankier setup, and also not going Ignite, which indicates that this is much more focused at safety. It's much more focused on finding these flank angles that this Camille really feels poised for, as well as just being able to act as a front line, as opposed to this Jax, who has the lethal tempo, wants to be able to just speed down these turrets and just whack, whack, whack. Imagine if I had a real weapon, just take down those towers as quickly as possible. And looking across the other matchups, are seeing that Mentos has that pretty standard Conqueror, more of that sustain, and the standard Phase Rush for the Vladimir. But yeah, outside of that topside matchup, not too much out of the ordinary. The lethal tempo as well for this Kindred, not going PTA, is that really just has fallen out of favor for pretty much every matchup, as it's just that much weaker when you look at how strong lethal tempo is for especially Kraken users in the Kindred and the Varus.
Right, and you actually bring up an interesting point. It kind of shifts away from the Kindred, but it's still related to that lethal tempo. When you look at a lot of the ADCs at Worlds right now, even on things like the Misfortune, like the Kaisa, they're just taking lethal tempo, and it's just because it works so well with the Kraken Slayer. It transitions super nicely into late game, especially, and it also just proves to be more damage than the plus the attack that you would normally see on things like the Kindred or even on the Misfortune. So it is an interesting shift in how ADCs sort of optimize their runes, seeing that lethal tempo will just provide more value overall. But that being said, I do think that press the attack is a bit more important on Kindred than the lethal tempo. It just allows you to be a bit more aggressive early on and get extra burst damage and push a lot of your advantages that you normally wouldn't be able to have with a rune like Lethal Tempo. I get it though. Maokai is going to be extremely tanky. Vladimir is going to have a high health total. Jax is going to have a high health total. So later on, the Lethal Tempo will prove to be more and more valuable. But for the early game, when you want to snowball this Kindred, I do think that the press the attack is probably going to be better. But we are back.
We're back as the
And
bot
they do
kill. I
good.
think that last auto had already started to channel when we went into a pause. So not even sure if there's an option. As we're going to pause up for a second. That's just the standard spectator delay. It does just happen whenever you have those pauses of any given length, and also with just us operating on a delay, so that will speed up and catch up relatively quickly. But we're back on the game, and we'll be getting everything lined up as expected.
Yeah, a little bit of a competitive integrity pause, just making sure that everything is going to be spaced out properly, but we are back, and hopefully no more technical difficulties will be occurring during this match, as already that one in the mid lane is quite brutal.
Yeah, very, very brutal. This Vladimir already, I'm not going to say a tough matchup, but it's pretty even between the two, and now Vladimir, he tended to struggle with not necessarily being able to have that same early game trading power as many other mid laners, just needing to scale up a little bit more, and now we'll have plenty of sustain, has those extra stacks in the Darksteel, and is looking to become a real threat, whereas Mentos, put behind early, already has 2 deaths to his name, but one of them was off a better level 1 skirmish, so you can't really fault him for it.
Exactly, and just a quick note as we sort of turn away from the early chaos that was happening, did end up splitting the map with the junglers here, with Maokai ending on the bot side, Kindred ending on the top side. Did of course reveal that position away by marking the Jax, kind of saying, yep, I'm on the top side, and of course did win the 50-50 on the first Scuttle Crab, getting that first stack off very early. We'll go check the bot Scuttle Crab, see if it was been done, but of course we have that foreknowledge, they don't, so they still have to do their due diligence and make sure that everything is going to be okay.
Exactly. As I don't know if you noticed, but we have a 4-minute Noon Quiver.
Yeah, that tends to happen when your Caitlyn's this far ahead, but it is very terrifying, all jokes aside. It does mean that a lot of the push early on will become just that much faster. Of course, the Noon Quiver passive means that you do extra damage to minions in addition to just all the wonderful stats that it gives, so it does mean that early dragons will become quite a real possibility for the side of TFC, meaning just because the Caitlyn can push in faster, Maokai also can clear decently fast, so we'd expect to see some pressure coming down towards that end, and also sort of amplifies that as a little bit of poke coming down here.
Oh no, Youngling getting rooted up, and even with that quick cleanse, it was not enough to avoid the headshot damage, and we can already see just how strong this Caitlyn is going to be. As this Varus Seraphine combo, they wanted to just be able to play this semi-weak side and farm out, and look for some potential trading if they needed it, but now we're just going to be so far behind, as Mentos as well trying to recover what he can in this mid lane as the bod kill opens up about a 15 CS lead.
Yep, and I mean that CS lead will be answered into the top side, of course. Jax, it does counter Camille, but it looks like playing the matchup super well so far. Just will pop the Ghost mid lane though to get away from that gank there. Nothing too crazy. Didn't expect it. But didn't expect it to result in anything, but now the game is kind of sort of slowing down a little bit. I don't expect it to slow down for long, but you know, no kills going down, everyone's sort of saying, okay, let's reset and get back into sort of the mental of playing the game. Do imagine though that after this cannon wave, the Maokai's going to sort of start shifting over to the Kyle Dragon and try to get something out, but of course looks like it'll just full clear instead.
It's going towards those Krugs, but does have a gank option, but with Earl King going so low, this makes life a little difficult, but the headshots answered back by Jincell are going to be that much stronger as Earl King, going low, but still surviving.
WQ from the Varus does do some percent missing health damage, so the lower you are, the more damage it will do, and of course, Earl King definitely feeling that aspect of the kit, but Jack's jumping on here.
Oh, and this is scary. That Counter-Strike gets the stun, the hook shot away. No Hextech ultimatum used. That'll just be an ultimate traded away for Stet having to leave the lane, but it does go to show why Jax is seen as a counter into the Camille can just sort of deny the extra damage from that Q2 with the Counter-Strike, and Jackie Chan's going to get pushed off of this scuttle, so Headhunt able to pick up that much more vision. I believe actually his second stack. So great job from the Kindred.
Yep, second stop picked up. Will be significantly faster paced than the previous game that we saw the Kindred. I believe we got the second stack at around 17 minutes, so up by 10. That's quite an improvement there. And Maokai, of course, will be invading, but was spotted on the pink ward there, so they know where this Maokai is. And will be interesting to see how the Varus decides to rotate. A little bit slow on it, but ugh.
Oh no, Headhunt getting the last shot off of the arrows and Jackie Chan having to run away. That's going to be another early kill onto this Kindred. We saw them in game 1, and they didn't have as much impact, but still, certainly looking to bring back that deficit from the level 1.
Certainly, as Headhunt will pick up the sort of free kill there onto the Maokai. Didn't actually know they were spotted on the village. Yep, support Mortal Kombat. Will end up winning that one and reset the vision back to neutral, but picking up that kill onto the Maokai is actually huge. Unfortunately, I do not believe the Maokai was marked at that time.
No, he was. 4th stack.
Oh, he was marked. Okay, so
Yeah.
Cool. I guess he swapped it over. I didn't see it, but that does mean that Kindred gets their first upgrade. 8 minutes into the game is actually a very good benchmark to meet for that. So,
Fantastic benchmark.
yeah. Fantastic. Good is an understatement. It's really good. But that does mean that the Kindred will be quite accelerated in a lot of the damage that they can do, and I want to see the Kindred be a little bit more aggressive now that they have that advantage.
Yeah, I completely agree. As we're going to see that ace in the hole, and oh my gosh, so much damage this early on. Denying this cannon wave, really good ulti usage to just deny more and more resources.
Very much so, as Younglin will actually be forced out of the lane there, meaning that it is very possible Jinsel will have to pick up some plates there. Maybe Seraphine can clear it, but sort of like trains passing in the night there as top lane will get ganked, and oh wait, Smite just used.
Oh, this is scary.
Didn't notice in time though.
Headhunt does pick up the Herald, and now, actually, the Swain is the first to rotate. This is a man advantage for the side of Oblivion. The Swain ulti pops. Jackie Chan soon to fall. Headhunt with the second kill onto the tree, chopping him down. Call him a lumberjack, as Stet trying to stay alive inside that Lamb's Respite, but Mentos still that Noxie in general, doing what he can, picks up a kill onto the Jax. And now it's a 2v1, but the bod kill a little too strong in the Vlad. Just going to be a disengage, as advantage going back over to Oblivion.
Yeah, they got what they want there. They got the Rift Herald. They got a 2-for-1 favorable trade either way you look. Say, we don't want to deal with the Vladimir. We'll probably misplay it. If Swain ulti was sort of decaying, and if the Vladimir waited it out, then you really wouldn't have that much fighting potential left. So do really appreciate the respect being shown towards a lot of the timers there, but it does mean that, of course, Camille was kind of on the short end of the stick there, and Jax likewise didn't get any of the love from that play there, and they'll both be sitting at a score of 0-1 and 3, sort of matching, and I think that Jax will take it. It is definitely more advantageous for them. Of course, Camille does look like she has much more gold to use in her pockets, hence why she has a little bit more items, but Jax, of course, is going to be winning that matchup regardless, and will gladly take it.
Yeah, Jax still keeping up and still has those fight options. The Caulfields, as opposed to the Kindle Gem and the Longsword, so a little more CDR, or actually even CDR across the board, just a slight difference in HP between the two, both building towards that Divine Sunderer. So Stet might want to try and use this opening as an opportunity, as that Q2 is actually used onto a minion, so good recognition from our Gru to find a little bit of poke. But in the bot side, Dragon is taken by Headhunt as they continue to leverage their jungler advantage.
Very much so, and I mean, just looking overall at the state of the game, you have to say that Oblivion is going to be quite comfortable with where they're at. They're at about a 700 gold lead, probably 750-ish, in addition to having a Baron lead and a Kindred that has four marks already. I believe it hasn't increased since then. Yeah, just 4, but still quite an impressive start to this Kindred already.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic start. As in this bot side, things are starting to even out a little bit. Only a pickaxe separating the two. It's about representative of the gold lead for the Caitlyn. As I've been very impressed with Younglin throughout this series, where regardless of the lane position, has found a way to keep even in CS.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Younglin has been playing really phenomenally throughout this entire set here, and even though the Caitlyn does start out with 2 kills, he is still managing to stay even in the CS department with the Caitlyn. So really impressive stuff there. Of course, does mean that the Caitlyn will still get 2 plates here and does still have 2 kills up on him. And that, of course, will mean that, fortunately, the gold lead is quite heavily in favor of Jincell, but you have to make do with what you were given, and she has certainly done quite a good job of that.
Yeah, definitely playing very, very well. Does look like he's opting towards the Immortal Shield bow as opposed to the Kraken Slayer this game. So not going to be dealing as much percentage shred, but still is going to have a lot more of that survivability throughout these fights, which I think makes sense considering you already have a Kindred and a Camille. So this Varus just has to stay alive to act as that cleanup.
It is very much a It's an interesting choice, mostly because it's actually the common choice for Varus's. They don't tend to actually build for Kraken. It's usually just the Immortal Shield bow saying that we'll eventually... Well, no, it's a bit weird, because I also thought that Kraken would make sense. Turns out that you just have enough built in on hit damage that you don't need the Kraken, and you rather just take the survivability. So it is seen a little bit counterintuitive, but certainly Kraken is also just a fine choice in general. So we'll be opting for the Immortal Shield bow. Of course, the Vladimir and the Jax do present quite a problem, so I do want to just be able to get that shield up and survive. Don't blame him for that one. And of course, the Vladimir, though, will be picking up the Night Harvester, speaking of the Devil.
Yeah. Big item spike coming in for the Vladimir. Now it's bot lane. Both junglers are nearby. The bot kill as well. So do have to be wary. As actually a lot of damage from that final spark. Encore, though, bringing one back in. Younglin saved by the support. Bardo keeping that one down, but now an even tougher position as the dive is only 2 kills for the bot kill, and now Headhunt trying to survive, pops the Lamb's respite, but it's too little too late, dives away, flash forward, triple kill for the Vladimir.
And I mean, it was really well played from the bot lane of Oblivion there at the get the Lux down, but unfortunately, the Maokai ultimate comes in, the Vladimir just runs in and dies. Ivan Vladimir now attacks on the Dark Seal, and he just upgrades it straight to a Magi. So this Vladimir will probably become a problem later on into the game, but we'll have to see how Oblivion actually deals with it, because combined with the Kindred ulti, the Swain healing, and just Seraphine being an extremely powerful teamfighting champion, it can be difficult for Vladimir to navigate the fights. You can, of course, use the Sanguine Pool to dodge out a lot of the CC, but if you can't one-shot someone and the Kindred can get their ulti down, it does spell a lot of problems for the side of TFC. But a little bit of trade going on here.
Looks like they just want to get this pick onto the Maokai. Plenty of damage coming through, and Jackie Chan will fall as Mentos does pop the ulti, but the bot kill very, very strong. Wants more stacks, wants to add some pages to the book. RG Ru, though, or Gru, going down instead, and there won't be any more stacks added as Herald about to spawn, and Oblivion seeking to pick that one up.
Yep, that was a very interesting choice to engage. They thought that they was overextended there. They didn't have the follow-up because they were in the enemy jungle, but Oblivion did have the members follow up. But unfortunately, looks like might run into a Vladimir here. Oh!
Huge chunk, and if those Chains of Corruption landed, it certainly would have been a kill for Younglin, but now if he tries to stay any longer, will be that overextension as the bot lane roams down. Mia pings are coming out, so there is some recognition, but as far forward as he's playing, it's still dangerous.
Looks like Earl King is just kind of chilling in between the towers there. Will sort of poked away, told that you can't be doing things like that, and looks like Jackie Chan will just start with the dragon. Kindred is rotating though, so we'll have to see if this is going to be a good fight for Oblivion, or if they even try to contest in the first place, but looking at the speed at which this goes down, I don't think they'll be able to reach it in time.
No, I completely agree. I don't think that there's a way that they find it, but now, both sides in the river, Stet from the back line, teleport flank just leads to the death of Earl King. The bot kill, though, in the middle of 3 Encore, missed the timing, and the Hemo Plague will pick up 1, and the quick shutdown in response, as the bot lane and jungle duo trying to run away. Jincell firing down on the Stet, barely survives, and that'll be another 1 fight, but Dragon still going over to TFC.
Very close on the Caitlyn kill into the Camille there. If that auto crit would have actually killed, but unfortunately 20% means that it's not quite likely that you get it there, and Looks like it will stay around though, trying to get, but will be spotted. So I don't know if there'll be any play here. Ace in the hole is still an option.
Well, they're going for it. They want
What?
it. They can't stay in the hole. They're looking for more. They got the land wrestling, but it didn't stay in it. Oh no! Kill gets traded out, but it's still going to be tower going down for the side of Oblivion as they pick up their second of the game.
Little bit of a misplay there from Stat. If he just backed up into the Kindred ulti, actually could have just stood and tanked the tower while Headhunt tries to finish off the Caitlyn kill, but instead doesn't quite manage to go back in time and will fall. And that does mean that's a 1-for-1. I believe it's a trade of bounties, so not necessarily the end of the world, but of course you would have liked that to be a little bit more cleaner if you're on the side of Oblivion, as of course we are going to head into more technical difficulties. It looks like Headhunt has bug splatted.
Yeah, ye old bug splat getting knocked out, getting sort of just removed from the game. Will reconnect as soon as possible. As I think that was like the formal disconnect, and now just has to try and reconnect once again. Maybe get that client reset as well. But from what we've seen, one thing that we haven't touched on quite yet in that bot side engage was how it was really a cross-map play, actually, for TFC. Gru on that Jax was able to pick up the top lane turret in response to that bot lane falling down.
Right, yeah, they're definitely able to pick that up. And of course, they committed 3 members to actually dive the Caitlyn, get that tower there. So naturally, it gives Jax the free reign to say, okay, well, I'll take the tower up on the top side, and yeah, sure, we lost our tower there, we lost our tower mid, and we lost our Caitlyn, but we're going to trade one tower for a tower and a kill, and that's the best that we can get, sort of cross-mapping things. But looking at the future of this game, though, there are 2 forces that I see on either team that are going to be the defining feature and kind of what wins the game for either team. It's the Kindred on the side of Oblivion eSports, and it's the Vladimir on the side of TFC. Both of these members are extremely fed and are going to be the main carries, and it's going to be about who can actually position better, who can get the important picks off when they need to. It's already looking pretty rough for the Vladimir because the death does mean that he has lost 10 stacks on the Magi's, meaning that the item is no longer gold efficient and is in fact pretty inefficient, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly. So right now, it looks like the Kindred is actually in a very good spot to carry, especially with the Lamb's Respite being able to deny a lot of what the Vladimir wants to do. So I do want to pay attention a lot to how these 2 members are going to play the game.
Yeah, can absolutely just eliminate some of those Hemo Plague response moments. But I just took a peek at the gold while we were just sort of waiting in this pause. Headhunt on this Kindred is sitting on 2.9k gold. Mm-hmm. So this next back is just going to be a full item. I'm guessing by the No Magic Mantle that it is going to be that the Wit's End trying to itemize against this Vladimir.
I would bet that so too, and of course Kindred normally tries to optimize for crit chance and not really as an on-hit type of character, but of course when you have a fed Vladimir, you have to make that stop. It's a necessary evil. You have to just say, okay, cool, I think it's 40 magic resist on Wit's End. Let's run it over, and of course it does add a lot of damage, so we'll expect him to pick that up, and it'll be looking to see how they sort of play it out from there. So we'll expect the Wit's End, but of course that does delay the 60% crit chance that you would normally expect from a crit champion, but we'll see how they play it out, because in this game I would actually expect that Infinity Edge is going to be pushed off until much later, and in fact they'll be going for a Lord Doms instead.
Yeah, I completely agree. One other thing that sort of went through my head, that the hidden technology would be the Hex Drinker as well as an option. As we get the reconnect, we are coming back into game as, once again, bugged for a moment as the spectator client catches up to live and finally be able to get back into this game and see how Oblivion wants to keep pressing their advantage through this Kindred.
Right, the next big thing that's available on the map is the second Rift Herald. Of course, it is 17 minutes and about 30 seconds, of course, give and take. But that does mean that it will be expiring rather shortly, within the next 2 minutes. So they do want to get that. It will be wise to try and look for that as soon as possible. Of course, Kindred backing now means that it'll be spending the 3k gold that we mentioned during the little pause there. But of course, TFC is not looking to just give this for free, and you can see them sort of mobilizing towards the top side of the map, trying to get vision down, using saplings to sort of control a bunch of space here, and I expect that even though there's actually not that many wards available, Lux will be able to place down just a little bit and give them the advantage.
Yeah, and this is just a positioning advantage for TFC, as Kindred had to go back and spend that mighty large wallet. Did wind up towards the Wits End, is actually, I think, going for the Wits End and the Hex Drinker into that Mob Malmortius. Not entirely sure about that build path. What are your thoughts of itemizing this heavily against the Lux and the Vladimir?
I think it's okay, just because Kindred has a lot of base damages to work with already, so it's not like the end of the world, but I do think that at some point they need to stop and make sure that they get the Lord Doms. Of course, if they just stop at the Hex Drinker and then say, okay, later on I'll upgrade to the full Maw, then I mean, it's fine. It's a 1300 component that could potentially save your life, especially this early in the game when the Vladimir is not yet at the one-shot level. So I don't necessarily think it's bad, but I think if they commit fully to the, I believe, 2800 gold Maw, it will be a bit too much invested into defensive stats instead of trying to carry your team with the gold that you've been given. So do you want to say that it's a little bit cautious there and should be a bit more careful about how they spend their gold, but either way, getting defensive stats for this Fed Vladimir is not going to be a bad idea anyway.
Yeah, I agree as well. And also there's the argument to be had where you just have Hex Drinker sit for a while until the hyper late game and you just replace it with a Guardian Angel, and they both functionally do the same thing.
Yeah. It's also a possibility. It does add a little bit more damage. We'll have to see what the itemization is going to be, but so far, the only thing that really needs to be played for right now, other than the side lanes, is going to be the dragon that's spawning in a minute 25, but I say that, and we're going to engage.
We got to fight as the Chains of Corruption go wide, but it doesn't matter. Jincel gets one shot. Argru going to just jump right onto Younglin, but that Lamb's respite going to be enough. Where's the timing? Who gets the kill? It's going to be going over the Bears as Mentos continuing to press forward. Stent looking for more, and instead it's just going to be the burst off of the bird, man, as we're nearing the 20-minute mark. The big purple worm's coming up, and this fight went decidedly the way of Oblivion, but the Splat's still on the map.
It was such a good recognition from Oblivion there. They saw Vladimir on the top side. There's no TP, so they say, let's just go for it. They can't rotate. They have to run all the way down, and they managed to get 3. They managed to get the tower, and now they have priority for this dragon here. Of course, health bars are a little bit scary. They have gold to spend, so they probably won't be able to do much off of it as Ghost is popped, and sorry, Younglin, but...
Sorry, Younglin, but the Hemoplague actually went wide. The abilities are on cooldown, still waiting for some of that extra healing. And oh no, as this fight continues, it's only good for the bod kill. Flash away, gets another heal, and 2 major members taken off the table with this Drake about to spawn as a pretty big mistake out of Oblivion that could come to cost them.
It will cost them, actually, as now they have no hope to contest this dragon that is spawning in 5 seconds, and I mean, we're just seeing how powerful this be if you give it space. If you can't focus him down, one shots the Camille. You can't finish off the Younglin, but looks like they're actually just calling for a Baron. This is actually a really smart call, but with the Lux ulti revealing it, it's going to be force off.
Yeah, that final spark thwarting it. Oh no, gonna walk head first into the bot kill, searching for that mark. I would have rather just seen them go for the mark instead of the Baron, and instead it's gonna be flash and a lot of time burned off the clock.
Tried to get so much out of that, saying it's okay. They're going for the dragon. They won't expect us to try and go for this because we're down 2 members, but just a quick check with the Lux ultimate. It's like a 30-40 second cooldown, no harm, no foul, and checking it, and lo and behold, they were doing. So now they can rotate and they have to back. So really good awareness from TFC to say, wait, they could just be doing this objective here. So let's just check. Let's use a resource to make sure of it. And then it ends up burning the Kindred Flash.
Yeah, and that's another huge resource to take off the table because of how mobility based this Kindred has to be, you know. Those moments where you have to be able to dive away and avoid this Vladimir with how fast he's going to be running into you. The Phase Rush and the Ghost, just terrifying as they get back up to 12 stacks. Just want to note on the Magi, so scaling back up to that efficient status. So an item not quite burning a hole in his pocket anymore, and the Death Cap picked up as well.
Yeah, that Vladimir is looking quite scary, if I do say so myself, but of course, there is quite a bit of magic resist on the side of Oblivion. You can see pretty much every member has some amount of pockets, so We'll look to see if the Vladimir does build into that Void Staff next, maybe even the Shield, maybe even the Shadow Flame. Just try to get some amount of Magic Pen, as there's no hard tank that can something like a Force of Nature that can afford to make a stop like that to shut down this Vladimir, so just a simple staff will probably go a long way next in their build. We'll see what they go for though, as only thing on the map is the Baron, and of course without any real sneaky plays, that's probably going to sit on the table for a while until the next major fight.
Yeah, exactly. It will just sort of sit by, and both teams waiting for their next break points, or at the very least waiting for a setup that they're comfortable with. Is looking at TFC, this is really just the bod kill show with Jincell offering some supplementary casting, but it really is just this Vladimir that you have to be worried of, because we've seen how quickly Jincell just gets shut down in these fights.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a Maokai bush there, just the 3 saplings chilling in there. Of course, the Maokai did actually opt to just get the Bomby Cinder.
No.
We'll hit all the friends there. We'll take a little bit of a chunk, but Teleport coming in here. Actually, this is a little bit stranded of a TP, but it looks like TFC does pay their respects, and will just leave. So no foul, but the TP does mean that they now have a little bit more positioning on the Baron, and with the Kindred rotating up, the Vladimir also meet Flex ulti burn to check for vision, and we begin the Baron dance.
We begin the Baron dance as Ace in the Hole used, Scuttle secured as well. Now the point to watch is going to be that Vladimir and the Kindred headhunt and the bod kill. Back and forth, as Oblivion just going to have to walk away from this, as they couldn't quite find the timing for the Baron. And while they did get some vision control, it's just going to be swept out once again by TFC.
Yep, and it looks like they'll actually just get rotation onto the mid tower because they had the bot side of the river available. Camille going in though.
Not sure I like this, as the Encore dropped as well. No bounce off of Stet, and while the Chains of Corruption do lock down the Splat for a moment, it's the only CC to start as they feel forced into this fight. Stet barely staying alive, but the stun to respond will find it. And now this Jax is unleashed and wants to keep on running. Double kill for the Vlad, looking for number 3 and finds it onto the Seraphine. And Swain, Kindred, Headhunt, and Mentos running for the hills. Ardru doing what he can, is going to go down to Headhunt, but now Mentos just left to fall, trying to stay alive, but 4 members up. That's going to be the Baron.
It was a bit of a peculiar engage from Stet, though. I mean, the hook shot onto the turret, try to get the Jax, but pop the counter-strike, and there's no follow-up. And what's more important is that the Swain was zoned off on the side. Headhunt could not find a way in, and it was quite literally just a 3v3 with the Vladimir there. And if the Vladimir's in a fight, you're not going to win it. And with that, TFC will take the Baron, they'll take the lead in this game, and they're going to look to have a pretty strong transition into the late game here.
Yeah, really looking for that transition, though. Drake spawning in a few seconds. Does look like Headhunt wants to make sure that this doesn't go through, as this is going to be just a quick burst down. Did not want to give that soul option over. So, at the very least, denying what they can, but still Baron and a 4-1 setup being put together by TFC.
Very smart to get the 4-1, by the way. Making sure that you're not spreading things too thin, because at the end of the day, your team is pretty much just Vladimir. So, trying to do a setup of 1-3-1 will only end up in disaster, because then you could say, okay, we're going to commit 5 members to the 3-man, and we're going to just win that because your Vladimir is not there. Your Vladimir is splitting elsewhere, so they're having the Vladimir act protecting agent to make sure that nothing can happen, but Headhunt will commit to the bot side regardless.
We'll commit to this bot side. Our group is going to get taken down here, but trying to bring Headhunt along for the ride as the Lamb's Respite has to be popped from that Jackson. Nearly finds the kill, flash forced away, and this Jax is becoming a mid to late game monster. And in the meantime, the base is breaking apart for Oblivion as the branches start falling forward. The towers are going down. The Swain is one shot, as it is just trying to find these last few shots, but with reinforcements out of Headhunt and Stet, that'll be the end of this push.
I mean, it's just showing why it's so difficult to try and deal with a lot of the side lanes, because even though this Jax is not fed at all, they were 0-4 before that fight, still was going to be a very close 1-for-1, maybe even... Gonna be bod kills picked off, but oh my god.
That was disgusting. Nothing else to say about it.
Dance.
As Death Dance damage didn't come through. No takedown means that's just going to be a tick-tick boom onto the back line as double kill, make it a triple. Earl King has left the game, not a disconnect, so not sure what's going on their side. Maybe some connection issues for TFC, but still with 3 members down and the bod kill here.
Gosh.
That will be it. This looks to be the game, but no minions actually. They'll bring this one back. Earl King's back, and it seems that the side of TFC does not care. There's too much damage, too much healing, too many minions as Headhunt wants to make a response, but the final kills are coming through. Bardo's support on the respawn, but Jinsel can just fire away onto the Nexus. Step with the respawn. The kills keep coming. This is a bit of a fiesta. Just hit the Nexus. End the game as there it is. One headshot to finish off the job. And TFC show themselves as the top team in the group.
And I mean, what a performance from the bod kill in this last game here. 15-1-3 on the Vladimir. Absolutely one-shotting towards the end. Mass sustain. It really looked so impossible for Oblivion to actually try and get anything back. And it's just so... It looked so difficult, but at the end of the day, it was a good run. It was a good showing from both these teams. I mean, it wasn't a wash on either side. It was a very, very close series, and I mean, looking forward at this, I'm pretty sure either of these teams could have actually won this set, depending on how a lot of the fights could have played out, depending on certain picks in the draft, and how it really was anyone's set. So I do think that both of these teams are going to be sitting very nicely at the top of the standings regardless, and of course that does mean that Oblivion their lossless record, and Team Fried Chicken will advance to become the uncontested first seed in the group.
Yeah, uncontested first seed in the group. It was a really fantastic showing from both teams. And again, as you said, I think either team could have taken that one. It did just come down to a couple moments, a couple unfortunate moments as far as the connectivity for Oblivion, but that's just the nature of online play sometimes. But with that being said, Team Fried Chicken are the top of their group, one of the top teams in Premade Dominate. But that is it for our coverage today. It's an absolute blast as always, Graham. Super fun having you on and just getting to cast with you every single week.
Oh yeah, no, it's an absolute blast. And of course, shout out to Snow, our producer for tonight. Really making sure everything goes well behind the scenes. So
exactly. I was going to say, shout out to our producers who make it happen. And also, thank you to you viewers out there, you lovely, lovely people who support Risen, help us do what we love, and help showcase some of these amateur stories as they fight their way through Premade Dominance. Thank you so much for coming out, and have a wonderful night.